Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and welcome to Season 4 of Million Dollar Business. In this series, I break down different industries, speak to experts who have sold at least $1 million in their respective industries, and ask them the questions that you need to know so you can copy and model their success. We're gonna look at what it takes to sell 1 million plus books. I sit down for 10 episodes with Neil Pasricha, the New York Times best-selling author of 6 books, which have sold over 1 million copies and spent over 200 weeks on bestseller lists, including The Book of Awesome, The Happiness Equation, and How to Get Back Up. His latest book on resilience is called You Are Awesome, and the link to order it is in the description below. I'm gonna pick his brain and extract the lessons that you need to help you sell over 1 million books as well. Let's go bring him in.
So my voice, I think, in my writing is accessible, casual, hopefully funny, okay? So I'm trying to do casual and accessible. And when I look at books that have sold 1 million copies, most of them are casual and accessible. They are Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. They're The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. They are Who Moved My Cheese. They are The 1 Minute Manager, right? I can go on and on and on. Brené Brown stuff, Daring Greatly. If you keep looking at the books that sell a crap load, it's because you get the tone and therefore they appeal to a wider and mass audience.
Welcome aboard, man. Thank you for joining us in.
Evan, great to be here.
So you're gonna teach us how to sell 1 million books. This is a 10-part series. This is episode 1, and this one's about sharpening your voice. So what does that mean?
Well, here's the funny thing about books. Before we, I'm so all in on this series. I'm super excited to talk about selling a ton of books because I take books seriously. You love YouTube. I love books. I live in bookstores. I spend all my time there. And I realized a few years ago, and I don't know if someone told me or if it just kind of hit me, it's like when you buy a book, what are you really buying? Essentially what you're buying is a voice in your head for a certain number of hours, okay? So what you're buying when you buy a book, if you think about it, is you're just buying someone's company in your brain, in your mind, in a conversation for a set number of hours. Therefore, the number one thing you need to do, before we even talk about the selling of the books, is sharpening your voice. You have to have a voice that people want to hang out with, that people want to listen to, that people want to be around, right? Most of the time when you're talking to your friends or family, hopefully they are engaged with you in conversation. But then when I ask people, well, can you translate that to your writing? The writing suddenly becomes stiff. It becomes formal. It sounds like Wikipedia. You open any business book off a business bookshelf. I know a lot of your audience loves business books. It's dry. It's boring. It doesn't sound like the person really sounds in real life.
Why is that?
Because what we do when we write is we formalize ourselves. We feel like we got to use big words and we have to use semicolons. No one talks with semicolons. Have you ever said a semicolon? That doesn't exist in language. But when you write, people are like, yeah, I gotta, that's definitely half a sentence, semicolon. So the first thing we gotta do is sharpen your voice. And people are always like, well, how do you do that? And just the root of this issue, by the way, is a great little story I heard about David Foster Wallace. So David Foster Wallace has sold millions of books, is no longer alive, but wrote the book Infinite Jest, among other things. And while that book was being sold, he also was teaching writing class at a college. And so the way he would open his classes is he would say, well, the good news for all of you is we're gonna learn how to write. And really all writing is talking. So if you can talk, you can write. And everyone's like, breathes a sigh of relief. We're in class with David Foster Wallace. It's going to be a piece of cake. And then he says, but how many people do you know that can really talk? That can really talk? He's like, not that many people. So let's work on your voice, on how you speak and how you think, and then it translates into writing. The number one thing you can do to sharpen your voice is to read fiction daily.
Wow. Okay. I read zero fiction, so this is very interesting. Okay, keep going.
The number one thing you can do to sharpen your voice is to read fiction daily. It should be fiction specifically because fiction is largely in another voice. You might be a 13-year-old girl in South Africa. You might be the boy in a boat. You might be Margaret talking to God, right? Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. You take on the internal mental monologue of a character who isn't you, who may be not the same gender as you, the same culture as you, the same language or background as you, and you submerge your own mind in someone else's voice. Some writers are better at this than others. My favorite book over anything else to practice voice is a book called Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. It was turned into a famous movie with Tom Hanks and was directed by the Wachowskis of The Matrix. I don't know if you know this movie.
It's same title, Cloud Atlas?
Cloud Atlas.
Oh,
have you seen this movie? Okay. So I think it was like a box office
bomb. Okay.
Unfortunately, it's like a huge, giant, big budget movie. I saw it at the film festival.
Okay.
And I loved it. And it turned me on to this book. The book is written like a book that keeps opening up deeper and deeper and deeper over hundreds and hundreds of years. And every time it opens up, it changes voice completely. So you will realize, like I did, is like, wait a minute, one author has written this book under the guise of 6 different characters. If that's too hard or too literary, because it kind of is almost even for me, I'm like, oh man, this is like hard to get my mind around. Start with like the Babysitter's Club. Do you remember the Babysitter's Club? So 300 million copies, it's a book series when I was a kid. My sister had them all, and it would be like Christie's Big Idea, a book written by, presumably, Christie. Then it was like Claudia's Giant Adventures, a book written by Claudia. And then they had these books every like 10 books called The Treasuries, where all the girls go to Disney World. And every chapter of the book is written by a different character. So you start learning about voice, how one author can work in a number of different voices.
And so is the idea that I'm trying all these different things to say, this part really resonates with me, and then that helps you identify what your voice is?
Well, you start shaking yourself loose a little bit, right? The goal here ultimately is to get how you speak, practice how you speaking, have you speak in a captivating way, and have that translate directly to the page. But I recommend reading fiction because it expands what your awareness is of voice in writing. So speaking of voice, it's like take a book like here, I brought it with me, The Help. Catherine Stockett. This is a debut novel that sold, it doesn't say on the front, but I know it sold at least 3 million copies. If I read the first chapter of the first page, it just says, May Mobley was born on an early Sunday morning in August 1960. A church baby, we like to call it. Taking care of white babies, that's what I do, along with all the cooking and the cleaning. I done raised 17 kids in my lifetime. I know how to get them babies to sleep, stop crying, and go in the toilet bowl before their mamas even get out of bed in the morning. You can hear it. What a powerful voice. And that is you and your brain sifting into another character's way of thinking. The goal here, though, is to sharpen your own voice. So first thing to do is expose yourself to fiction because it's going to keep stirring up ideas and thoughts, and you see that. And like the word there was like, I done it's written that way. And you start being more comfortable with your own style of writing. Second thing you need to do here is dictate and transcribe. So when you're in a car, when you're walking down the street, when you get an idea, don't say, oh, I want to write an article about selling 1 million books. Literally try it. To hit record and say, okay, first thing on selling 1 million books is sharpen your voice. I think everyone should read more fiction. I'm recording it, and then I get home, I transcribe my own speaking, and when I read that writing, it sounds different than if I wrote it. What you're then doing is practicing your voice as it's coming from your brain to your mouth, now to your fingers. And you aren't interrupting that flow because you aren't thinking, how do I write? You're literally writing down what you said. Totally different.
It's more conversational.
Completely. And that's essentially what people want when they buy a book.
So wow. What about people? It's so interesting. So I think about people who are writing books. Typically, a lot of them are not great speakers. A lot of people would much rather just sit and write than be a speaker and stay in front of a stage. And so you're saying, no, you need to practice. Maybe not being in front of a stage, but you have to practice. It's speaking out.
Well, I should say, when you dictate and transcribe your own writing, when you read it, you're gonna cringe. You're gonna be like, oh my gosh, like what horrible grammar I have. You're gonna read that and you're gonna be like, whoa, this doesn't sound correct. But as you edit that, the root kind of middle of it, the skeleton of that thing, will stay more conversational, more casual, and most importantly, more accessible to people reading it if it starts with a transcription. So I don't think it's important to like speak perfectly.
Right.
I certainly don't. You can hear I'm speaking. I'm all over the place. But
That's pretty good. But you're gonna edit it down, right? Like
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And that's what I'm saying is when you read your own dictation and transcription, you recognize all kinds of thinking patterns that you were unfortunately already editing out when you started writing. And the goal of sharpening your voice is when people buy a book, they're really buying a voice. That voice has to be accessible to them. It can't be so high and mighty and so academic and so full of big words and so full of tall, strong prose that people can't reach it, okay? So I admit that most of my recommendations are biased towards nonfiction because that's the category that I'm in, although I'm trying to use fiction as examples because narrative voice is what sells.
Right.
My editor on the Book of Awesome and some of my sequels is a woman by the name of Amy Einhorn. She's one of the most successful editors ever in publishing, something like a 40% hit rate on the New York Times bestseller list.
Nice.
The Help is also one of her books. There's many books that Amy Einhorn has edited. When people look at Amy Einhorn, the editor, and they say, how do you choose your books? You get 1,000 books submitted to you a year. You only print 10 of them, making up the numbers, but let's just say for order of magnitude. She's like, all I'm looking for is one thing, voice. And that's it. I don't care if it's fiction. I don't care if it's nonfiction. I don't care who it's targeted to. If I can hear that voice in that book, I buy the book. And when I first talked to Amy before the Book of Awesome came out, that's my first book in 2010. She told me I only have one other book under my imprint, and it's a book called The Help. It's not out yet. So The Help was the first book, the Book of Awesome was the second.
Nice.
And they both sold millions of copies because she's only looking for one thing. She's only looking for voice. And so we're going to talk, as this segment goes on, and we talk about, there's 10 things, we're going to talk about a lot more things about selling a million books, but the first thing that matters more than anything else is voice, okay? In the nonfiction world, there's a great book called The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay-Stanier. Also brought it with me, I can grab it if you want. And similarly, when you read the book, you hear him talking to you. So of course, it's like you're hanging out with somebody. Of course, you're more likely to read it, therefore recommend it, buy multiple copies because you had a connection with the book. How else do you get your voice to be strong?
Yeah.
Journaling.
Okay.
Okay, so everybody knows you should be journaling. There's so much science and research out there about it. Professor Slatcher and Pennebaker did a famous study that shows that if you journal for just 20 minutes a day, then you're 50% more likely to stay together in your romantic relationship after 3 months. That's a crazy study.
Wow, okay.
Professor,
both people journaling or just one?
The couple together.
Journaling.
It's done at University of Texas. I always joke when I'm on stage, I was like, 3 months is a really long relationship at the University of Texas. Everyone laughs. And I say, but that's in any college or university campus. Sean Acor, positive psychology researcher, has also done a journaling study on patients with chronic neuromuscular pain. If those patients can journal for 6 weeks, you can reduce their pain medication by up to 50% at the 6-month mark. So you and I have probably heard lots of these studies and we're like, oh yeah, journaling's good for you. But what I'm arguing today is it's actually also very, very good for your voice. Okay. Most people have a challenge with journaling. You know what the challenge is?
What do I write about?
That. What I write about, and I just don't do it. Like it's just like eating healthy or like going and exercising. It's like, yeah, I heard that's good.
Yeah.
I can't just get into like a rhythm like that, kind of piece of cake. So what I do in my life to force more journaling, therefore force more unfiltered writing and unfiltered thinking, which helps my voice, is I surround myself in journals. Okay, I do it 3 ways. Number 1, I have a journal. Okay, so that helps. But I started this process on a cue card, and now I do it in a journal. It's called 2-Minute Mornings. So every morning when I wake up, I fill this out. It's just 3 prompts. I will let go of, I am grateful for, I will focus on. Each of these things is backed by a specific scientific study that shows that it helps process your anxieties and help your mind focus on the positive.
So every morning?
Every morning is a 2-minute practice. I do it every day. You can do it on a cue card. I made a book just to make sure I can actually do it. Second thing, I subscribe to a website called ahlife.com. AHHLIFE.com. When you subscribe to ahlife.com, which by the way is totally free, it asks you how frequently would you like to journal. I said every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 p.m. That's what I said. So on those days, it spits out an email to me saying, how was your day? And don't forget, 3 weeks ago or 7 months ago, you said this.
Right.
So you see one of your old entries. All you do is reply to the email with what's inside your brain or mind at the time.
Okay.
It's a private way, because it's through an email service, but
Yeah.
free, to just get some anxieties or thoughts out. The third thing I do, and this is a model I stole from Derek Sivers, who has a great article on journaling on his website, sivers.org, is I keep a Word document on my computer, which is just called J. I just call it J for journaling.
Okay.
And whenever I'm wrestling with something, which is pretty often, I just open it up and I just start flow of consciousness. Like, I'm really stressed about X. Here's why. Here's what I think. Here's what I'm assuming to be wrong. And by the time I'm done, I always feel better, because I've just written 500 words to process the anxiety inside me. It's not stewing around anymore. By surrounding myself with journals, I am A, journaling.
Right.
That's the first thing. But B, constantly sharpening my voice, because I'm writing so much stuff that no one sees, right? Journaling in the morning, I've got an email subscription, and I've got this Word document thing. That's 3 journaling things I've got, all in the name of helping my mind, but also constantly sharpening my voice.
Could you define your voice?
Yeah, what's a voice mean?
No, like for you, what is your voice?
Oh, okay. So my voice, I think in my writing, is accessible, casual, hopefully funny, like I'm talking to you, like a little bit lighthearted. I might approach things from different angles and I come at them. I made fun of semicolons earlier. I got no semicolons in any of my books ever. Like, super important to me, because
Very anti-semicolon.
Well, Kurt Vonnegut has a quote saying semicolons are like, all semicolons do is show you went to college.
Okay.
He's like, he has a terrible phrase about them. But he's like making fun of the fact that like we use them to sound impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to do casual and accessible. And when I look at books that have sold 1 million copies, most of them are casual and accessible. They are Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. They're The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
Yep.
They are Who Moved My Cheese. They are The 1 Minute Manager, right? I could go on and on and on. Brené Brown stuff, Daring Greatly. If you keep looking at the books that sell a crap load, it's because you get the tone, and therefore they appeal to a wider and mass audience. And even smart people prefer accessible books.
Yeah.
They might buy the thick, giant, academic, dense thing, but they don't get through it enough that they're going to buy it and recommend to other people. A lot of those big, thick, smart books are just collecting dust in everyone's bookshelf.
Do you then use that? So if you want them to be accessible, you want them to be humorous, conversational, do you then use that as a filter through your editing to say, okay, let me read that chapter that I wrote back and say, it didn't hit these 3 things, so I need to fix it?
Yeah, so like my most recent book, You Are Awesome, we did 7 edits on that. That means the entire 300-page book I read through and changed tremendously 7 times over 2 years. So constantly trying to make it as simple, clean, crisp, and accessible as possible. There should never be a point in the writing where the reader is thinking, how'd they just jump from that to that? It's really, really, really kind of simple, clean, crisp voice as best as I can do it.
And the reader needs to feel like they're sitting down like this, like we are, and having a conversation with you.
Well, that's why your channel's so big, and why your content's exploding, and why YouTube is exploding in general, is because it's a pretty close way to connect with someone's voice. Books are trying to jump, and I will argue books are still the densest form of compressed knowledge we have in the world. Like in a 300-page book, you might get 20 years of someone's research explained in the cleanest, crispest way possible. So it's an amazing way to get stuff faster. And I personally read faster than I watch. That's just, like on a TED Talk, I'll like read the transcript. Okay. Because it takes 2 minutes instead of 18. Right. Do you know what I'm saying? This is
You're a fast reader.
But but it's like a quick read, you know what I mean? And like that's why people probably listen. And like people are probably watching this right now on like 1.5. Yeah. Dude, this guy's too slow. Speed him up for me.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Is this fair? Maybe I don't know why I'm thinking of this. Nonfiction is, imagine I'm having a conversation like this with the author. Yes. And fiction is, I'm watching a conversation between 2 people.
Totally, and it depends how the fiction is written. So sometimes the fiction is written in third person. Right. To your point, there's a narrator kind of overseeing the story. Yeah. Sometimes it's written in first person. I woke up on my 13th birthday, and my mom said to me, then you're in the person's mind. There's some books, and one I really recommend is called How to Get Filthy Rich in Rising Asia by Mohsin Hamid. It's written in second person. Second person is amazing. So it's like choose your own adventure. It's like you open your eyes, you're under the bed, you see your mom. You know what I mean? The whole book's written like that. So there's ways that you can use voice to grip people as well. And if you can do something unique or interesting, like a second person story or getting a voice or a view that people, the help, it's like you can hear in that something that you wouldn't otherwise hear. And it's a beautiful thing to listen to.
And it needs to be captured in the first couple pages.
Well, exactly. And it has to be the same voice for the whole book.
Right, but as I open up, and maybe it's an assignment for people to go home and do, go look at any of your books or these books we've talked about and just go read the first 3 pages.
Exactly.
And you can probably capture what their voice is and then go look at your book in the first 3 pages. And if it's just introduction or super boring, you go, okay, I can tell that these guys have a voice and I need to sharpen my own.
So in this book, You Were Awesome, and I did the same for The Happiness Equation. The opening of any book is 10 pages that you as the author do not get to control. So if you open this book, okay, there's 10 pages that you don't get to control. They're like blurbs, right? People saying nice things about your book.
Right. Tony Robbins says Neil is the man.
Right.
Yeah.
Then there's like a title. There's like a title page.
Yeah.
Then there's like a copyright page.
Yeah.
Then there's like table of contents.
Yeah. There we
then the
go.
table of contents keeps going.
Yeah.
So it's like they're so far into this thing before they hear your voice.
Yeah.
So with all my books, what I try to do is capture my voice a bit early. In this book, if you open the flap, I've hidden a phrase that's in my voice. It is in you under the jacket.
Cool.
I also wrote a thing that's right at the front that I skipped over called 3 Ways to Get the Most Out of This Book.
Okay.
So you hear my voice quickly. In this book, the first thing you see when you open it is you are what you eat and you are what you read. Okay. Are you hungry? Let's go. And that's the first thing you see when you open this book.
I love it.
Because I want people to hear the voice before they have to go through the 10 pages of hurdling of all this Library of Congress, copyright, title pages. That stuff's super boring. So you want people to grab you. And I stole that idea, by the way, from another book that sold millions of copies called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. When you open that book, it says, 7 things you're going to learn in this book. And you hear him talking to you before you have to go through all the rigmarole. How do you bridge the connection between you and the reader quick? You said first sentence, I'd say even when you open the book. And I even argue, this is a weird thing, but I don't agree with dedications in books. Every book has a dedication. None of mine do. Because I think that when you pay $30 from a bookstore to buy a book and you get home, I don't want it to say, to Cindy, I love you.
Right.
You're like, who's Cindy? That's not to me. So and to the reader, to me, feels disingenuous. So I've got no dedications in my book. They're at the back in the acknowledgments so that I can continue to connect the reader to the voice without any interruption or interference.
Cool. I love it.
Just a personal bias.
I love it.
Everyone who's an author will hate this because they're like, what's he saying about my dedication? I love Cindy. Cindy's my wife. Gotta leave her in.
I love it. So rule number 1, you have to find your voice.
Sharpen that voice too.
Sharpen your voice, yeah. Cool. Today we were talking about how to find your fans. What do you got?
Well, here's the thing. It used to be for 200,000 years since our species has been around that if you wrote the damn book, then you found your fans. You put the book out there in the first place, you coagulated all your thoughts for dozens of years of life, and you put them down to like this big important text, and you released it to the market. The breathless fans would then come. They come after. But the world's completely backwards now, Evan. You know this. We're surrounded, we're doused in information. We got too much content. You know, Yuval Noah Harari, the guy who wrote *Sapiens*, says it used to be information was power. Now clarity is power, right? So in this endless sea of free content everywhere, it's no longer enough to write a book to find fans, because 1 million of books come out a year. 1 million books get published a year. 500,000 from the big 5 publishers, another 500,000 self-published. And I didn't make those numbers up. Those are like legitimately 1 million books are published a year. So if you just write a book, you're 1 in a million. You're 1 in a million. I would wager maybe 50 of those sell 1 million copies.
Wow.
So you have no chance. You have no chance of making that dent that you want to. The only way around that is to find your fans first. give to them endlessly for a period of years, content that they love, that they want to share, that they're proud to be affiliated with, that they want to wear the t-shirt for, then, only then say, oh, and now I have a book, okay? There's a guy, he did this for the last few years. You might have heard of him. Here, I brought his book for you. Subtle Art Not Giving a F by Mark Manson. Come on. This guy, markmanson.net, gave endlessly for years. He wrote these incredible articles about love and relationships and, purpose and meaning. And so when 2 years later he said, oh, by the way, now I'm going to do a book, boom, he sold 9 million copies of this thing.
It's crazy.
And counting. Another guy that does this really well, friend of the channel.
Friend of the channel.
Friend of the channel. Ryan Holiday. This guy gives so much. He writes probably, I would have to guess, 75% of his writing is not in a book. It's his monthly book club list. It's his regular articles on Medium. He's constantly giving free content everywhere. So when once in a while he says, oh, by the way, I've got a book, people line up for it. And it pops quick. Sold over 1 million books. Another guy who does this really well, these are people, I show up the books to give people models so they can Google them. Why just take it from me? Learn from Austin Kleon, former reference librarian, lives down in Austin, Texas, runs an incredible Friday email list where he just gives 10 pieces of interesting art he finds every year. In addition to that, he's got a regular blog with all this content. So when he finally puts out a book, you're like, yeah, I like what that guy says. In fact, he found the fans on this post first. This was a post called Steal Like an Artist, and the post went so viral that it then turned into a book. Okay, find your fans first.
There it is.
This is my first book. It's called The Book of Awesome. In 2008, this came out in 2010. Let me tell you about 2008. 2008, I went through the worst year of my life. Lost a marriage and lost a friend. And I won't go through a ton of details. There's a whole TED Talk just on those two things. But now we're 10 years later, I'll just say I was the worst year of my life. What did I do? I started writing a blog called 1000awesomethings.com to try to cheer myself up. No one reads this thing except for my mom. She sends it to my dad, my traffic doubles. Okay? I'm talking nobody reads this thing.
Right.
A month into it, I wrote a post, number 980. This is 1,000. Started from a countdown.
Okay.
I was like 20 posts
Going
in.
backwards, yeah.
Number 980, old, dangerous playground equipment.
Okay.
As I do every day, I post an essay about it. I got pictures, I got comments down there below. I reply to the comments. This one hits the front page of fark.com. Suddenly I go from 50 hits a day on my website that no one reads to 50,000.
Wow.
That's from that one hit. Okay? Then it starts making, of course, Wire Magazine and Reddit, and they all feed off each other. So by the time the Book of Awesome came out, I had 10 million people who had visited or read my website. So then, it's no surprise maybe that in that first week we sold maybe 5,000 copies. Doesn't sound like much, but it was enough to make number 2 on the bestseller list. When you make number 2 on the bestseller list, all the bookstores and people read the bestseller list are like, oh, well, that's a book that I should buy. It's on the bestseller list.
Right.
They featured it at the front of the stores. That creates its own positive stickiness, and now we hit number 1 the next week, and it stayed at number 1 for over 100 straight weeks.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, but it's because I found the fans first, and then I gave them a book. And remember I said the website had like 10 million hits at the time of the book publishing? Now it's closer to 100 million, but at the time it's 10 million. And I told you, in the first week, I only sold 5,000 books.
Right.
A very, very, very small percentage of my audience bought the book in the first week. But it was enough when a normal book would sell 50 copies a week to just pop onto the bestsellers. That created a positive churn. Only worked because I found the fans first.
Did you try to, like in your head, was it, I want to be an author? Or were you just starting the vlog?
Well, it's a hard question for me to answer because as a child, I was super quiet, super introverted, had very few friends, and writing was a place for me. I wrote for my little town newspaper. I was the editor of my Portable 6 Press in grade 6. I started the newspaper in high school. I was the editor of my college newspaper. So writing was always a natural home. I stopped writing for 10 years, but when I went through the divorce, when I lost my friend, I turned back to writing just because it gave me some salvation.
Therapy.
So did I always want to be a writer? I mean, it was maybe a dream in the back of my head that I didn't quite admit to myself because I thought it was so implausible, but it was a safe space for me.
Right.
So I was sharpening my voice
right.
for many years to get to the place where I started my blog. And before that blog, I should also mention, for years, since I was like 10, 15, 20 years younger, I had many failed blogs. on the way there. And there's a chance that one might have failed, but then maybe a year or two later I would have started a new one. You got to find the fans first. And if you don't have the fans, they probably aren't going to buy your book. Who's going to buy it from the beginning? Even a book like The Martian, right? Or Twilight. These are big fiction books that have sold multiple millions of copies. They found their fans online first. Both serialized, both released for free online, get tons of fans and traction on the different websites. Then The Martian comes out. Then Twilight comes out. People were like ready to buy it because Twilight was slash fiction. It was like a sexualized Harry Potter fiction, I believe. And The Martian, Andy Weir had written a tiny little short story that went viral. Then he started releasing chapters of The Martian. Boom, then comes in the book. So find the fans first. The world has changed. It is too loud and too cluttered to try anything else.
What frequency should we be putting out? It's like somebody wants to write a book, they want it to be a bestseller. How often should they be releasing written content on social media or the website?
I'll use a great example to answer this question. There's a guy by the name of Brandon Stanton. I think I'm saying his name right. He created a concept called Humans of New York.
Yeah.
And when you hear him interviewed, he said, well, I first tried architecture in Chicago, or like skyscrapers of Detroit. Like he literally had other ideas, and then he bumped into one that got traction called Humans of New York. I don't think he was posting daily at the time, but it was a photo of somebody with a captivatingly well-written little write-up of the person, a quote. You could hear his voice in it. Okay. Built traction, found fans, got a following. When you find a following and when you find fans, you then increase your frequency, right? He probably then started posting daily at that time, and I don't want to speak for him because I don't know him personally, but I'm just saying, then you ramp up your content to deliver what people are frothing at the mouth for. Boom, the book comes out, Humans of New York. It's a home run, right out of the gate. New York Times bestseller, stays there for weeks and weeks and weeks because he had fans first. And the way to find these fans, by the way, is one, to sharpen your voice. We already talked about that. But it's two, to be incredibly philanthropic.
Okay. What do you mean?
Give, 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 give. That's what you do. That's why you got 2 million subscribers.
Right.
When I come to your channel, I'm just giving free stuff. I'm giving 10 ways to learn from Steve Jobs. I'm giving so much content so that when it's time for like Evan to be like, hey, buy my book, I'm like, of course. We have a natural reciprocity baked into our psyches. It's the root of the book, the seminal book called Influence by Robert Cialdini. I'm trying to only reference books that have sold over 1 million copies. That one definitely has. But when we are given stuff for long periods of time, we want to give back.
Okay.
We want to.
So what am I giving as an author?
Content for free online. So markmanson.net has no ads, right? He's not tracking you. He's not trying to sell you anything. You just get free content. And then when The Subtle Art Not Giving a Fuck comes out, which is his book, you're like, oh, I have been reading that guy's content. Some people, like Tim Ferriss, even go so far as to say, hey, if you like any of my 1,000 free blog posts, my 500 free podcasts, they actually like list out all the stuff. Then would you buy my book?
Yeah.
And humans are like, yeah, like I'll drop $20 for the guy's book. And it's those people who then read it, love it, and tell the others who have no idea who the guy is, or buy it for Christmas presents. Because the number of copies of the Book of Awesome sold, subtract the number of people that have read my blog, most people that have the book never even heard of the blog.
Right.
They were just given it to them by someone else who had. Root.
You had your super fans.
You gotta have the super fans. Find your fans first.
What kind of ramp up do you think somebody should, like if people are watching this, they want to have their own best-selling book.
Right.
What's the ramp up in terms of giving free content away? Is it 6 months? I mean, for you, it was 2 years of doing that.
Yeah, this is a hard question to answer, partly because it's like, there is no perfect answer. Some people's stuff takes off right away. Some people grind for years and then they have something kind of explode. And you never know when to quit.
Okay.
So part of the problem, of course, when you're putting out free content and you're trying to find fans is, well, I'm not getting any fans. That's the normal reaction.
Right.
So when do I stop? Remember I said before 1000awesomethings.com, I had tons of blogs that never worked over the years. Throughout my teens, throughout my 20s, right? Like, never worked. And there's a role model of mine. He doesn't know that he's my role model, but his name is Todd Hansen.
Okay.
He was one of the original editors of a comedy newspaper called The Onion.
Okay.
It's turned into theonion.com.
Yeah.
Okay. He was interviewed by a guy named Mike Sachs in a book called And Here's the Kicker. And he was asked, hey, how do I write comedy for money like you? And he said, everyone asks me that question. I'll go on panels at colleges, I'll take Q&A. People are like, hey, I'm funny.
Right.
How do I get paid for being funny? And his answer is the best. Okay. He says, do it for free for 10 years. Then it'll probably take off.
Okay.
Because what have you been doing for 10 years? Sharpening your voice, constantly getting better. You're not going to get worse by keep doing it. And he did it for free for 10 years. And if you look at me with the Book of Awesome, you can say, oh yeah, Neil, it took a month to get that hit. Actually, Evan, it took 20 years.
Right.
Because I've been writing since I was 6 years old, then the high school newspaper, then the college newspaper, then all these blogs that didn't work, some of which I like put money into, and some of which I really tried to make work. Nothing until that pop. My mom would say, yeah, because you've been working on it for 20 years.
If it's not timing, and I mean,
Yeah.
yes, it's having the right luck and the circumstances and how good are you at
We're going to get to luck later. There's a lot of luck for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's not timing, then is it numbers, like whether it's 1,000 true fans or like how do I know? Like,
Okay, here's the test.
Here's the test.
Here's the test.
This is the test.
Okay. Do you know how I knew? There's two indicators that I knew that this thing was going to take off.
Okay.
Before the book, before the blog even had like 10 hits, 10 posts.
Okay.
And they were this. And I've done this on every blog, and this is the only blog where I got this indicator. Number one, I emailed it to everybody I knew, like from my Gmail account, like, so I can still remember it. Subject line was honest to blog, and it said, dear everyone I know, comma, I just started a blog. Can you please check it out?
Yeah.
www.1000awesomethings.com. Let me know what you think. Neil, that's it. Short, sweet, to the point. I knew I sent that to like 100 people, and so I could watch the hit counter on my vlog. Over the next day or two, I got 700 hits. So what I thought was, not only are they forwarding it to people, but those people who I don't know are forwarding it to others. So I had a multiple of hits compared to the number of people I sent it to. That was big. The second big indicator was I got a comment on my blog from a stranger.
You've made it.
I was like, who's this person? Who's Joe28? I don't know any Joes.
Right.
And that was so crucial for me because I was like, what a cool little indicator. Someone who doesn't know me is hanging out here. I know those two things sound so tiny and small, but you have to remember, for all these other projects I'd had before this one, I never had that. I sent it to 100 people, 50 check it out. And the next day it's 25, and 4 days later, no one. Like, it didn't have the natural shareability. That's the only way anything gets transferred. People have to be willing to share of their own volition. Why would they do that? Because it says something about who they are. It speaks to their own identity. Great website is called waitbutwhy.com, written by Tim Urban. Tim's a friend of mine, and his website has legions of super fans. Because when I forward one of Tim's articles, which is usually like a 10,000 word essay about artificial intelligence, what I'm really saying is, I'm smart. I understand this. I think you'd understand and enjoy this too. So there's an identity thing that happens as people share. Maybe when people share my blog, they're saying, I'm funny, or I'm focused on the positive. I'm an optimistic person. There's something about their identity that they're saying to others when they share it. I think that's important to talk about because you're only going to share stuff you love. And you're only going to share stuff if it reflects positively on you.
I think about my YouTube channel, and I've been around for 10 years on YouTube.
Yeah.
It took me 5 years to get to 7,000 subscribers.
Right.
And then 5 years to go from 7,000 to 2 million.
That bodes well for me. I'm a year in, I got like 100 people on my thing. I'm like still waiting for a comment from someone I don't know.
I would go do it for you, but I know you. But I mean, I guess with a lot of people in the early stage of creation, I wasn't taking it seriously. I was just throwing out some content every now and then. It wasn't part of the plan. And so I like that as an acid test of, hey, create some content, share with your friends, and see, does it get more views than the number of people you sent it to? As a quick acid test to say, this is something that might take off or not.
And bid into that acid test. Don't ask them to share it.
Just say, tell me what you think.
Because then you'll see if they naturally share it.
Right.
Don't burn your goodwill by asking them to forward it because they don't want to. People feel icky.
Right.
Just send it to them and watch. See what they do.
Do you still have that first email?
I do. Yeah, you want me to dig it up for this? I can find it.
Yeah, we should put it. We should put it in the description.
Sure, I'll see if I can find it. I'm pretty sure I can.
That'd be pretty cool.
I've had the same email address for a long time.
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, cool. So before you go off and get the book deal, you have to find your fans.
You have to find your fans. One last little tip, though.
Yeah.
This is a personal bias. I'm just going to throw it in there for anyone who's thinking about, like, what do I do? What do I launch? Is focus on the positive. Just focus on the positive. That's what's in short supply. 99% of the content out there, known as the news, the radio, the television, it's negative. Because our brains are naturally oriented towards looking for negative things. It's an evolutionary program inside of us all, helps us stay alive, it's helped us survive for hundreds of thousands of years. That's why on a newspaper, if it bleeds, it leads. The world is oriented to give you bad news, and they will never stop because we're naturally programmed. So you know what's in short supply? Content on your channel, positive stuff, helping people feel better about where they are and just getting a little bit improved. There's a reason self-help is the biggest category in the bookstore. Because that's what's in short supply. Nobody makes a buck selling good news. So you can be that person.
I love it. We're talking about breathability equals readability. What do you got, man?
Breathability does equal readability. I was reading a great book a number of years ago called On Writing by Stephen King.
Okay.
And he has this great point in the middle of the book. You were the one that first told me that, like, sometimes like way deep in the middle of a video or the book, like there's the best point. For me, the best part about the book was in the middle. He said, you ever go to a bookstore and you see someone do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, for years I was always like, why do people do that? There really is no, it doesn't, and if you ask someone, why did you do that? They don't actually have an answer. They're not like, oh, I'm looking for this or I'm looking for that. But actually, he's like, they're checking the breathability of it.
Okay.
How much air a book has. Because there's a difference between a book that is light, fluffy, easy to read, has air in it, is breathable, than a book that is tight, dense, no pictures, no graphics, no headlines. Right? Now, I like both books. You probably do too. Maybe on both of our bookshelves we have both kinds of books. The airy ones and the thick, dense ones. Interestingly, the books might be the exact same dimensions, they might be the exact same thickness, but one of them might have 50,000 words in them, the other one might have 400,000 words in them.
Right.
Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace, a 1,200-page book. I counted the words, like I just did like math of like, measured one page and multiplied with it.
Not one at a time?
No, but it's like 500,000 words.
That's crazy.
Okay? Whereas The Happiness Equation by me, this book, big, thick hardcover, is like 50 to 60,000 words.
Yeah.
But when you open it, guess what?
Yeah.
There's lots of little stories. There's headlines. There's a Dilbert cartoon.
Right.
There's like lots of, I call them scribbles. Like there's little boxes. There's drawings. I want people to feel like the book is breathable because breathability equals readability. It does. It does. You are much more likely to read a book that you can get through. So I was thinking about that, and as I look at my bookshelf, I was like, what other books on my bookshelf have sold millions of books? And I'm like, oh, this book has sold potentially billions of books. Like, this is like one of the most popular business books of all time. Who Moved My Cheese? So I opened it up. First thing you notice is, okay, oh yeah, it says right in the back, over 24 million copies sold. Okay, you should get this guy on. Boot me off.
No, this is great.
Okay,
Give me good value here.
Okay, so this guy, first of all, it's less than 100 pages.
That's crazy.
So the first thing you notice is, okay, I can get through this.
Yeah.
Check out the spine.
Yeah.
It's like super thin.
Yeah.
Then it's written in like 20-point font.
Yeah.
There's pictures in it. If you do not change, you can become extinct. Like, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
This book is, look at, there's so many cheese pictures. Okay, so I'm like, who do I know contemporary writers today that are doing this? I have a good friend. He's on his way to selling 1 million copies of this. I think he's at 500,000. His name is Michael Bungay Stanier. It's called The Coaching Habit. When I asked him about editing, he said, I found a great editor, also happened to be Seth Godin's editor. Seth Godin, very much known for his breathability.
Yeah.
Short, simple prose, right? And he whittled this book down to 25,000 words. You could argue that's the same as an epic blog post in someone's blog.
Yeah.
But look at the breathability. Look at the big, huge questions, like huge font. Like, there's a reason why this thing has been hanging out in the top 1,000 on Amazon for 4 years. It's because it's super breathable, therefore readable, therefore only then do you get to shareable, tell people aboutable, buy copies for your friendsable, because you have to read it too, right?
How much of that is done by the author versus the publisher?
Well, here's the thing that's related to this question is, what the thing I'm talking about is super hard. People think, oh, well, he's saying like, don't put much in it. He's like, no. It's harder to make it breathable than not. There's an old famous Mark Twain quote, sorry my letter was so long, I didn't have time to make it short. Right? The idea is, no, the editing, the whittling, the simplification, the clarification, the cutting to the bone, that is what takes you edit after edit after edit. Sure, the Book of Awesome is actually just 200 blog posts from 1000awesomethings.com, but we edited this thing over a year, trying to make it like simple, short. Look at this one, blowing out the candles on your first try. Keep the spit to yourself and just let it fly. It's time to get windy. Awesome, done. Like then you go to the next one, like sneaking McDonald's and hiding the evidence. Your family, so that one's a bit longer. I also put lots of bold. I highlighted words in bold for no reason, other than that's how it was in Mad Magazine and Archie Comics when I was a kid. Those are tailored towards children with attention problems like me. And so add in some pictures. Hired a photographer. You know, that old joke people say when they open a book, they're like, oh, no pictures? Oh, there's no pictures in that. No drawings. They're right. Every book should have some arts or some way to visually stimulate and challenge the reader, because otherwise it's going to collect dust. Not many of us have a 14-hour flight to really sink into gun germs and steel. Right? And that book has done well, but the number of people who have read it would be less than some of the books I'm referring to. 24 million copies of Who Moved My Cheese sold. The book's 96 pages. You know?
So again, is that something that you as the author think about and say, okay, how do I make this more breathable? Or is that, here's my finished manuscript, publisher, editing?
Yeah, so it depends on your relationship with your publisher and editor. In my case, historically, I've had to sometimes convince them, right?
Wow.
Yeah, because people want to put out a book that's full, that's stuffed to the brim. And on my new book, so I'll tell you some of the conversations, because we're recording this before this book comes out. Okay, so on You Are Awesome, I said to them, hey, when you open the front page, can I put this little secret note? So you open the book, you hear the voice, it says, you are what you eat, and you are what you read. Are you hungry? Let's go. So they're like, oh, okay, we can do that. Then I'm like, oh, and when you peel open the cover of the book, can we hide a little message underneath the flap? And they're like, yeah, okay, we'll do that. That's nice. Well, sure. So I'm like, oh, can we insert the graphic of, I have this story about the ellipses, the ... One of my models from this book is about adding an ellipsis to your life. Whenever you hit a dead end, add a ... So I found the history of the ellipses. I found the first ever time it was used in history 500 years ago. I got an image of it. Obviously, it's out of copyright. It's 500 years old. I put it in the book, and they said, oh, we don't need that picture. That's not needed. I was like, I know it's not needed, but I want it for breathability. So later in the book, I'm talking about postsecret.com. The guy, Frank Warren, he's collected over 1 million postcards. It's the largest advertisement-free blog in the world. And I said, let's put some of the postcards in the book. They said, I don't know if it's needed, but to their credit, when I said, but I want it for breathability. I want pictures. I want something light. They're like, okay. Handwritten really helps. If you can handwrite anything, we live in an age where everything we read is digital and computer generated. So now actually handwriting stands out. Real handwriting, not computer handwriting font. I mean, I have, at the end of every secret of this book, The Happiness Equation, that's why, for that exact reason, that's all written by, so you literally use a sharper and printer paper for this. But at the end of every chapter, if I can find a chapter end really quick, come on, Neil, don't fail me now. Here we go.
There it is.
It's like I summarize the lessons in my own handwriting. right?
Cool.
So that way it's like a signpost, it adds to breathability,
right.
It creates a little totem between chapters.
So do you write the whole book first?
Yeah.
And then you think, how do I make this more breathable?
Your Word document or Scrivener file or whatever you're using to write will not be breathable.
Got it.
Adding breathability
into it.
in. That's what I'm talking about.
Every what? Every how many pages?
Well, I love your brain. You want to get it to like kind of algorithm, make it an algorithm.
Roughly, like every...
I'll tell you the test.
Yeah.
The grandma test.
The grandma test. Okay.
Here's what you do to answer that question. You give the book to your grandma. You leave it there on her counter table or on her bedside. And a month later, all you do is ask her one question. What page did you get up to? And I do this with my friends with my books. I want to know where you stopped. I don't expect you to get through the whole book. How many books does the average person get through? I just want to know where you stopped reading, because that tells me that it wasn't enough to keep you flipping, right? And on many of my books, especially in rough draft, people are like, oh, page 50, page 100. So I go through my own book, and I'm like, what exactly is happening? Oh, page 50. No pictures from page 30 onwards. That'll do it. The chapter was too long. It kept going and going. Oh, I didn't have enough of a nugget here. So I'm always trying to get people to flip. You know what the scarcest resource of all is today in the world? Time. Attention. So breathability also helps because it gives you a quicker path through it. It's partly why I think we're seeing the rise of thin books are coming back. You know, the TED Talk books, right? Peter Thiel's book, 0 to 1. You know, you're seeing a lot more of these like the commencement speech books are getting popular. It's like, that's a commencement speech. That's literally like a 50-page book, but sells a lot of copies because I can read it. It's breathable. I can get through it.
In the venture capital business that I was in before, we had a grandmother test as well, which is similar in that the executive summary is the first 3 pages of your business plan typically.
Yeah.
And it's, can your grandmother understand can they understand the business that you're in?
Yes.
If not, then we wouldn't read the rest of the business plan.
I mean, that's exactly the same principle.
Yeah.
The root of it is it simple? Breathability, readability, and the 3-page abstract of a venture capital pitch, the same principle is applying here, which is it simple enough that it could be understood by a wide or mass audience? The whole point of this video series is selling 1 million books. The hidden assumption is to do that, you got to hit the mass, right?
Right.
A lot of incredible books have sold 50,000 copies, and that's a lot of books, by the way. But we're talking 1 million here. In order to get to 1 million, you got to hit a big, wide, fat, mass market audience. And you aren't going to do that if your book is not shareable. Life's Little Instruction Book, shareable. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, shareable, right? Don't sweat the small stuff. The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. I'm mentioning these books because if you flip through them, you're like, this is pretty easy to read. So then you read it, so then you share it. People love sharing books that they've read. They don't like sharing books that they haven't got through or that they haven't opened yet.
Right.
Even though those books get purchased, they don't get shared.
So some elements to add more breathability, pictures, font size.
Using handwritten fonts.
Handwritten fonts.
Yep.
Occasionally, like as an accent.
Yeah. Like, and I think what Michael's done with this book, and like I said, it's flying. Maybe by the time this video comes out, it'll be in 1 million copies. Is like, you know, he's got 7 questions. So there's a listicle format people can latch on to. It tells you which question you're at, then it opens into that question. You know, we talked about Ryan Holiday earlier in an earlier video in this series. The obstacle is the way. Ego's the enemy. Short chapters, really small pieces of wisdom.
3 pages.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then you get another great test on the breathability thing is, could you read it in the bathroom?
Okay.
And I will tell you honestly, one of the biggest compliments, or the most frequent compliments I get is, hey Neil, I found this book in my friend's bathroom.
Wow.
Or I leave it in my bathroom, guests love it. Or it sits in our cottage. Or I leave it on the corner of my desk when the students are bored at the end of the school year. Like, any of those places communicate breathability, because that means that you can pick it up and pick it back down, or you can jump into it or jump out of it.
Well, I think with something like that too, there's no order. If you jump in on its day 58, you're still going to learn something awesome.
Yeah, and I didn't put that as part of this thesis because I think it is possible. I know it is possible to sell millions of books and have a cohesive narrative structure.
Right.
So that's not a deal breaker if it's not like this book is, where you can jump in and jump out. Certainly, this book has an order, but that helped for sure. Because now it's like the phone book. You can just play around with the thing.
But the idea should still be, at least how I'm hearing it, I should be able to flip to any series of pages and see, like I learned something even though I don't, even if it is, I have to go in this order, even if I jump in at page 231, I might still learn something.
Is that, because you know what the thing that we haven't talked about yet here in this series is that books are daunting for almost everyone. They are. We are consuming content in almost every other medium more than books. Books are small. Books are tiny. You can sell 5,000 copies and be #1 on the bestseller list, right? You sell 5,000 tickets to a movie, you aren't even in the top 10 on the box office for the weekend.
Right.
Like this books thing is a small industry, right? Small, because books are daunting. We are taught as children to hate books because we're forced to read them cover to cover in the school system, and you didn't even pick which book it was. You got to read King Lear, and it's in a language you probably don't understand, and you talk about it ad infinitum, and then you're like, oh, I don't think I like reading. You do. You just haven't got a chance to exercise that muscle yet. So yes, if your book can be readable and fun and simple and accessible and light and pass the flip test, that people think, I could read this. I actually could. That gets you so much cred and helps you break through the clutter, because the book world starts from a place of disadvantage where most people have had it beaten out of them as children that they don't like books. 1 in 3 Americans has not read a book in the last year.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's 1 in 3. I mean, maybe when you're doing the survey, you're like, yeah, I read a book. I mean, like I'm like, that's kind of low. I would think it'd be even higher. I sit beside people on the planes all the time. I'm like, have you read what are you reading? They're like,
nothing.
Nothing is the answer. Nothing. I'm trying to get people in the game. Start with this one. This is a kid's book.
Right.
It's got 30 words.
Gotta make it breathable.
Breathable.
Love it. We're talking about finding an empty ocean. What do you got, man?
Well, this one's about being different, being disruptive, finding an empty ocean or an empty place in the bookstore that no book like yours exists yet. Okay, so there's a process to do this. You have to be thoughtful about it. And so I think the first thing you gotta do is you gotta look for a really, really, really big bookstore. If you're in New York, go to the Strand. If you're in Portland, go to Powell's. If you're in Austin, go to, is it Book City down there? Forgetting the name of the bookstore. Book People. Got it, finally. If you're in Miami, go to Books and Books. If you're in Toronto, go to the Big Indigo, or the world's biggest bookstore, BMV, right, where we're in Toronto. Anyway, find the biggest bookstore near you. Go there and invest in 2 hours of wandering that store, looking for the 3 most similar books to the one you have, either in your mind or that you've been writing online or whatever. Find them. Pick them up and hold them. And study them for 3 things. Number 1, read the acknowledgments of that book. It's very important that you find the name of the literary agent, because that's the person that literally sold the book to editors to buy it.
Okay.
So I stole this advice from David Sedaris, who sold many millions of books. He's a comedy writer, humorist, and I asked him way back in the day when I lined up for him to get his autograph like 10 years ago, how do you find a literary agent? He said, find the book similar to yours and read the acknowledgments. Then you find people who literally are doing that.
Cool.
You can Google them. Their names and addresses and emails are public. You approach them and say, I got one somewhere. That's the first thing. Second thing you find out from them is, where's the ocean? Where's the gap? Where's the piece of the book market that does not have what you're writing? Or are you adding to the, is there too many books on this topic already? Because you don't want that. If you're like, oh, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna write a children's book about hitting. And then you go and there's like 50 children's books about hitting. You're like, well, now I'm gonna be the 51st.
Right.
What you want is to go to the biggest bookstore and discover that there's no children's books about hitting. And so you can write that one. So you're looking for an ocean or a gap or some space, right, around your idea, right? And then what you do, this is the interesting thing, is that you write down the Dewey Decimal Number
Okay.
from those 3 books, and you go to the library I know this sounds funny, but bookstores are organized by category. Libraries are organized by the Dewey Decimal System, right? So Melvin Dewey was like this guy 150 years ago. He made up like a periodic table type thing for books, right? 300s is psychology, 500s is sciences, 700s is management, this is fiction, whatever. Because the library is organized by Dewey Decimal System, you can look up the Dewey Decimal number from the 3 books that you have already picked out and find all the books in those categories. Again, you're looking for an empty ocean or an empty place to play. What you want is to find very few or 0 books similar to the one that you're writing or have written or have in your head.
Okay.
Why is this important? Because you need, in this crazy, overwhelmingly cluttered world of content that we all live in today, with endless books on any topic, endless YouTube channels on any topic, endless podcasts on any topic, you need to be different. And different is the hardest thing to be. Okay, so what I'm talking about here is then therefore deciding, you have to answer this sentence, Evan. You have to be able to say, there is no book about X. So I am writing a book about X.
Okay.
Right? There is no book about how to raise autistic children as a single stay-at-home dad. So I'm writing a book about how to raise autistic children as a single stay-at-home dad.
Okay.
If your book is hitting the mark on a topic that people want, but nobody's reading, nobody has yet, boom, you found an empty ocean.
So how did you do with this one? I mean, this is coming out. What's the process for your awesome?
On this, so let's go backwards here. This book came first, okay, the Book of Awesome, 2010. There is no book like it. There is no book. The only book that I could find that was like it is a book called 14,001 Things to Be Happy About by Barbara Ann Kipfer. The other reason it's good to find those books that are similar is because they can blurb your book. So inside this book is a quote from Barbara Ann Kipfer saying, this gives me 14,001 things to be happy about, the Book of Awesome. So it's like great to grab a blurb that's similar. But there was literally no other book that was just a list of positive, simple pleasures with an essay about them. Her book is different because there's no write-up. It's just 14,000 things. Cold pillows, wet suitcase, whatever it is. Mine is like a commentary on it, okay? And I noticed her book, by the way, had 1 million copies sold on the front. So I was like, oh, there's no book similar to this, but the one that's closest is also done well.
Right.
So I was like, cool, there's something there. For You Are Awesome, first I identified a problem that I had, which is resilience and anxiety. I noticed that as I have children, and they are starting to get little anxiety. I'm like, who else's kids have anxiety? And I talk to every parent, and they're like, all of our kids do. They're all nervous and stressed, and the world these days is so overwhelming and complicated that kids these days are anxious, and we're feeling anxious about our kids' anxiety. The interesting thing that I noticed was nobody is dealing with largely war, famine, starvation, major economic depression. We're living in the most abundant time ever in human civilization, and yet we have the highest ever anxiety rates. So I wrote this book as a way to address things like anxiety and mental illness for inside myself and hopefully for other people, and I could not find a book that was doing that in an accessible, simple way, giving people a model for resilience that wasn't based on deep academic research, although that's backing up everything I'm saying, but rather on simple little tools, guidelines, and frameworks that anybody could do in order to get through your day a little bit easier. So one of the things, for example, is I talk about this way to clear your anxieties in the morning by doing this 2-minute practice, right, which I referred to already. But that's just an example of one of the things from the book.
So I can't help but think, in our previous video, you were talking about how there's 1 million books that are put out every year. 500,000 from the big publishers, 500,000 from self-publishing. Every year.
That's probably even conservative, considering that self-publishing
is so easy now.
So easy and so huge, right?
So there's 1 million books a year already coming out. And so the default thinking is easy to say, well, how am I going to be unique when there's 1 million coming out every year? And then the first example of talking about, single dad who has an autistic child feels like such a niche thing that then how do I sell 1 million books with a tiny little niche topic? So how do I bridge that gap of being unique when there's so many books that are being sold, but also being wide enough that I can have some significant sales from my book?
Well, it's interesting you say that because I have so many examples I brought with me to kind of use as examples, but if you can pinpoint a niche on the head, you can nail it, the market can actually be gigantic. Sounds small, right? Sounds small, autistic single father, okay? But there's probably millions of people in that same boat around the world, or that are growing into that industry or growing into that lifestyle that need that, and they don't know they need that. And in the process of writing it, yeah, and by the way, we're talking about selling 1 million books, but you can't just aim for it can't just be like, everyone loves it.
Right.
Like, it's too big and vague. I think that if you go to a bookstore and you walk around and you have a unique idea in your brain, or you have a vision for what you want, it actually is pretty likely that you won't find a similar book. I think it's actually pretty likely because the bookstore is curating for you what's popular or what's selling. That's why I didn't say go to Amazon,
right?
Because they have everything. I'm like saying go to a big bookstore, then go to an airport bookstore, then go to an independent bookstore. And independent's a great way to go because then you see like what is popular enough that it stood the test of time and it's being sold in a bookstore only has like 500 books in it, right? So then you find gaps that are in the mass space that you can write to. But your point is valid. Like I don't know the perfect answer. I just think that if you can nail an industry on the head, you then can still go big. This is the world's first ever children's book that is interactive and hyper-realistic.
Okay.
Meaning that the graphics in here are like you tap the earth gets bigger, you tap it again, it gets bigger, you zoom into the earth, kids love it, right? Okay. And then you flip. So there's never been a children's book that's interactive and realistic. I partner with an animation studio that works with the Discovery Channel to make this thing. Okay? So it sold really well.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that unique, but there was nothing specifically just like this when it came out.
So if
there was lots of interactive books,
right? Lots
of realistic books. I just did something that no one else had done before.
So do you walk to the kids section then of the bookstore?
Yeah.
And you look at...
So inspirations for this were like The Very Hungry Caterpillar. It's an interactive book. You got the holes in it and stuff like that.
Okay.
Press Here. You know that book where I don't know if you read this series, I don't know, but you press the yellow dot and like the dots split up. Okay. Tap the magic tree. I'm like, oh, I love those interactive books where you pretend to play with it.
Okay.
But I want one that's like you're zooming into outer space, you blow on the waves, the waves get bigger.
Okay.
You know, then you flip it over your head, you're underwater.
Okay.
You're right? Like, so I wanted something that was a little bit more like a guided meditation. And so when I did press for this book and people said on TV shows, what is this book? I said, it's an introduction to guided meditation for children.
Kids? Interesting.
Yeah, because there was no book that I could think of that was that way.
Yeah. How would it work for fiction? Same thing?
Well, fiction, I think, may be even easier because your idea and your voice and your authentic self is, by definition, going to be pretty...
unique.
I think so. I don't write fiction, so I'm always stretching when we talk about fiction, although I should be able to answer that because that's what the video's about. But I just think that when you write your story, of course it's your story. You might start by copying and start by imitating voices, but as it keeps going, it's even more you.
So if I have a sci-fi book in my head of this future alien civilization, but the process
get it out.
I don't, but if I did, then the process would be go to the bookstore, look at sci-fi, see what's selling well, bookstore on Amazon.
Look for the gap. Look for the empty ocean. I heard Gary Vee also say that in an era where there's endless supply of content, meaning that everybody's putting content out on every channel in every way, it's overwhelming, the only chance you have to stick out is by being your truest and most authentic self. So before you go to the bookstore, before you look for empty ocean, decide inside yourself what you want to be writing. Don't say, I'm not saying go to the bookstore, find a gap and write to that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying do the inner work first. Start your blog first. Start your YouTube channel first. Hone your voice first. Find your fans first. Then look for the positioning and where it can go that no one's doing. There's no guided introduction to guided meditation for kids that I could find. There's no list of simple pleasures. There's no simple book on happiness that you could just understand to like figure out how happy is. To me. And you're a reader too. So don't forget when you go to the bookstore, the answer isn't, is there one for somebody else? It's, is there a book that I would buy on this topic? And if there isn't, perfect. You're gonna write it.
What about using Amazon and seeing how the books are selling well, or how to pick which category that you want your book.
It's fine to do that. The only problem is, and I've heard lots of this advice. People say go on the rankings and check where the gaps are. Look at the 3-star reviews because the 3-star reviews tell you like what's missing from the books.
Okay.
The only problem is then I worry about like, are you really writing authentically? Like, are you writing to sell a book that sells? That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to write a book that's yours and that's really good. That's why I'm talking voice. That's why I'm talking fans. Then we can talk about the marketing and the sales stuff. But it's got to be your thing. I'm not writing a book to sell it. I'm not talking about writing a book as a business card here. I'm talking about writing an awesome book that you are proud of on your deathbed because you're like, I contributed something to the global conversation and that you can be proud of. So I don't study all these metrics and rankings and look at it that way. I just think of your idea first and then see where it fits. And if it doesn't fit, or if it's overwhelmingly full, you will have therefore a more difficult climb to find fans, find a literary agent, find a publisher, because every step of the way people are going to say like that's already been done.
How much is it if somebody's trying to get a lit agent, trying to get a publisher, you come with your idea, guided meditation for kids.
Yeah.
How much of it then needs to be kind of positioned and managed and tweaked to get the deal, to get the sale?
It's amazing. So it's amazing because this book, about a month before it was published, the Book of Awesome, was called The Other Side of the Pillow.
Okay.
I even have the cover. I can give it to you if you want to post it here. And 199 other awesome things in life.
Okay.
We had a cover, it had a pillow on it, it was orange.
Okay.
And a few months before publication, the editor said, that looks like a book about insomnia.
Okay.
She's like, it looks like a book that you would read if you're having trouble sleeping. So we completely changed the title, the framing, the positioning. I'd already written the book.
Right.
No words changed. But we haven't got to title yet. We're going to get there. It's going to be. It's going to. No, it's not
skipping ahead, guys.
Yeah, not to give you like what's that, spoiler.
Yeah.
We're going to get to title, but like there's an example where the entire title, positioning, cover completely changed.
Right.
Just before.
And then Awesome became, the brand.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the other thing is that like we haven't got to that yet either. But there's something about ownability. Yet that's something that you can own.
Okay. So what?
That's like number 7 in the video series, man. We're not even there yet.
I'm jumping ahead. What I'm hearing is you need to figure out your own voice and your own
first
what you're trying to create.
Yes.
But then it's got to match it to some kind of positioning.
Yeah.
You're not just trying to chase the market. You're not just trying to position it in a certain way for people.
Because I think that's disingenuous.
Right.
And I think the market sniffs that out pretty quick.
Right.
You're like, oh, you're the 7th book. You're
right.
You're like a minestrone soup for the golfer's soul. You're like, someone's did that.
Right.
Don't do that. Find your voice first, then see where it fits.
Right.
Maybe it's that. Maybe what we're getting to through the conversations. Yeah, it's got to be somewhere in the middle. Of course, there's a commercial element.
Or like 95% you, and then that last 5% is just how do we'll change the name.
We changed the whole thing right before.
But it's the same content.
Same book inside. Exactly.
Right. But then don't just go make the book of amazing because the Book of Awesome did well.
And by the way, anytime you see a hardcover book come out as a paperback with a totally different cover, happens all the time. Okay. What you're hearing the publisher say is, we messed up.
Huh.
What you're hearing the publisher say is, we got it wrong. Let's try something totally different for the paperback. If the hardcover sold well, they wouldn't change the cover.
Right.
But so often when you see a paperback, you're like, what? Oh, this is the same book, but a totally different cover. What they're confessing to is that they got the ocean wrong. They guessed wrong on where it goes. So now they're trying to position it totally differently.
And that's a dance you play between you and the publisher and the lit agent to figure out.
And the publisher's trying to guess the market, and
right.
And if there's proof of concept, that's healthier because you can.
How do you balance that? Like, this is what I want to create.
Yeah.
Especially for first-time authors.
Yeah.
This is what I want to create versus here are the experts who know what they want to do. Like, I want my little thing on the inside flap, and I want pictures, and they don't want. So how do you know where that you need to fight for versus, okay, these guys are experts?
So, I always got worried about this question because according to my book deals, it's like the publisher gets last right of refusal.
Right.
So one answer to your question is in the contracting phase of a book deal, you can say, no, I get to decide the final title, or I get to,
right.
But very few publishers will do that. They typically will not sign that. But they also aren't gonna like stampede over your face.
Right, they want you to sell it.
With you crying and screaming, right?
Yeah.
So I got great advice from Seth Godin. famous marketing author. He's written 19 books like Purple Cow, Linchpin, Tribes. And he said, Neil, whose name is on the cover? At the end of the day, it's your name. So you have to fight for everything you're not going to be proud of. I'll be honest with you. I pushed back on the cover of this book, even after the title was changed, probably 10 times until we got this one. I'm so glad we did, because it's a winner. I pushed back on this title and cover about 9 times. I don't like the cover. I don't like the smiley face.
Okay.
I said, I don't want a smiley face on my cover. Smiley face? Come on. They're like, Neil, we've shown you 9 covers. Now we're overruling you. And I still look at that and I'm like, if I just pushed one more time.
Okay.
Even though it hurts and your skin is so damaged and you're like, I feel like I'm a jerk. You know, you want to pick up the phone and you're like, I just really don't like that cover. But I only pushed back 9 times, and I could guess, but I feel like there was a better cover out there. Having said that, the book sold 200,000 copies, that one particularly, so it's okay. But you have to love it. It's your name on the cover. The answer to your question is, does it pass the deathbed test?
Okay.
When I'm on my deathbed and I
thinking
look
about the
back on my
smiley
book,
face?
will I have been proud of the book I made? That's all that really matters at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Will you have been proud of your piece of art or your contribution to the world when you're at the end of your life?
And fight for it.
Fight for it.
Love it.
One last example on this exact thing. I signed a children's book deal. I won't say the name of the publisher, just to keep it confidential. And silly me, it just said Neil Pasricha, Book of Awesome, children's book. Signed the contract, got my money, all happy. A couple months later, I'm like, okay, I got my idea. It's going to be an interactive, hyper-realistic, guided meditation. And they're like, what are you talking about? It's going to be crossword puzzles, stickers.
Oh, wow.
$6.99. You know, we'll print it around the world. It'll be dirt cheap. We don't even need you, really. We're just going to use the logo and make it kind of simple. I'm like, no, I want something totally different. Called my literary agent. She's like, well, you can break the book deal, but you'll probably break your relationship with the publisher too. And I had a choice to make. At that point, I had some success. So I broke the deal. And then I put the concept together for this on a piece of paper, like a Word document, what I wanted. We shopped it again, found a new publisher who liked it, and the book came out.
Right.
That's the story of it won at the end.
Right.
But I could have easily broke the deal and never found anyone again, and then I just don't have a book. So you have to decide, it comes down to your own principles and your own integrity. What do you want? If you're so clear about your vision, it makes it easier for other people to agree with you or for you to say, I'm out. If you're like, I don't really know, then you don't get to decide.
Right.
You get decided for.
And props to Penguin.
Penguin Publishing came through.
For signing up for the guided meditation.
Exactly. They took a risk.
Yeah.
They took a risk.
Cool. How to find the perfect title for your book. So what do you got, man?
Okay, finding the perfect title. That's a hard question because here's the thing. We've talked about it a couple times already, but people are too busy. They don't have time. They don't have attention. If you think about a book in funnel marketing terms, the number of people who enter the funnel of looking at your cover is much higher than the number of people who buy and read your book. So you're trying to convert, I'm using words that I don't really know myself, but like you're trying to convert book lookers
right.
into book readers, right? And the only way to do that is to have your title and your cover be captivating and interesting and provocative and capturable enough that you're like, what is this, right? How many books, when you walk into a bookstore, if you walk into a big bookstore, you're probably walking by, just for argument's sake, 10 or 20,000 books.
Okay.
You might pick up 5. You might buy 1. So I'm just showing you, there's the little funnel there, like 10,000 covers, 5 you pick up, that you maybe do the flip test, or you read a few pages, or you read the back, you check a blurb, and then maybe 1 that you buy.
And if it's in a bookstore, it's already the 10,000 most popular.
That's the other thing, right? Like Amazon's got 100 million books on it. So we're talking about a bookstore that's already trying to curate it. If you're at the airport bookstore, you might look at all the book covers, but they only have 50 book covers.
Right.
So you pick the 1 that you might take on your plane, if you even buy 1 at all. You might just get jujubes and keep going. So there's 3 principles that you need to follow.
Okay.
I think of your cover. And I notice that most books break these and they don't sell.
Okay.
So I do believe in these. I didn't learn what these were, and I've made mistakes I'm going to show you.
Okay.
I had made a huge error on this one, which I'm about to tell you about.
Okay.
And knock over all my dominoes. So here's the thing. Let's start with this one.
Yeah.
The first principle is ownable.
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 You know this. This is you. Believe.
Yeah.
You have one word.
Yeah.
You live by it. You swear by it. You own it. When I think believe, I think Evan Carmichael. And certainly, second most importantly, I don't think of anyone else.
Okay, great.
Okay? Right? I mean, off the top of my head, I'm like, believe? That's you. Right? That's in my head.
Yeah.
You own that word.
Cool.
Awesome is ownable. What does ownable mean? It means no one else is using it.
Right.
Or if they are using it, you are going to use it bigger than them. Okay? So like Jen Sincero wrote a book called You Are a Badass.
Okay.
That book has sold millions of copies. She owns the word badass. Mark Manson wrote a book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It was one of the first books ever to use the F word right in the title. I'd say arguably he owns that word.
He owns the F word.
He owns the F word. Because who else has the F word?
Right.
And no wonder his sequel is called Everything is F'd.
Right.
Because he owns the F word. And if the first thing is it has to be ownable.
One word?
It has
a
to.
sentence? What? Like what?
Well,
what's ownable?
it could be a word. It could be a color scheme. It could be a branding. Here's the thing. Malcolm Gladwell, I would say, he owns the white book cover with the small icon in the center.
Okay.
The tipping point has the match. You know, Outliers has the little beads, right? Blink, I can't remember what the picture's of, but he owns the white. If you think white book jacket with a small, like, prescient, like little impactful little icon, that's Malcolm Gladwell. Of course, many people will try to copy it, but because he was the first, because he is the biggest, he owns it.
Right.
I would argue that Mitch Albom owns the small, tiny, packaged little book, Tuesdays with Maury, 5 People You Meet in Heaven, you know, these books with like kind of like a little gold or embossed navy blue or maroon. You can kind of picture it, and all his books look that way. Chicken Soup for the Soul, sold millions of copies. You can picture them, white. Chicken soup, that's a phrase they can own.
Yeah.
No other book has that. That red cursive font. Ownable. And if you're a new author or first-time author, this is even more important because you got to stick out in the cluttered marketplace. Find a word no one else is using. Find a phrase no one else is using. Find a color no one else is using. Find a size no one else is using. Right? I can grab some examples. Like here's one. Coaching habit. Okay. Ownable. Who else is, when you think coaching, this guy's on his way to selling 1 million books, this is what you're going to think to. You can't think of many books off the top of your head that have that word, so you can therefore own it. It can be a space that you can play in. Awesome is ownable, hence awesome is everywhere. I have a couple sequels that you don't have here, and You Are Awesome is the new book, because I found the word I own. And by the way, interestingly enough, I've been talking for a few years about intentional living. I thought my writing was all about gratitude. Then I thought it was about happiness and gratitude. Now I think it's about intentional living. So the subtitle of this new book is 9 Secrets to Getting Stronger and Living an Intentional Life. This is my attempt to try to own a new phrase. And if it works, and if we like it, and people resonate with it, and they're starting to see a reaction to it, that's what I'm thinking I'm writing underneath. Now on the next book, I can call that book maybe, but it's fine. It's fine, but like I can use that phrase a little bit bigger.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, can I tell you about a mistake I made?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's no awesome here.
Okay, so you could argue that that's a mistake right off the bat. You know, it's my fault. We were trying to change the positioning, have him be more authoritative. You know, the picture of me here is like I'm wearing a suit in this one. Like, okay, it's a little different. This picture doesn't have a picture. The second principle, though, is where I made the mistake, is giftable. Giftable. There's no exact science on this, but a very high percentage of books are purchased as gifts. Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, graduation. If you think about the last 5 books you've purchased, I'm going to guess 2 or 3, if not more of them, were actually gifts for other people, right? And if I think about myself, 9 out of the last 10 books I bought were gifts for other people, because I'm always buying my wife a book, or I'm buying my mom something for her birthday, or my niece is turning 7, I'm like, buy her 3 kids' books. So giftability is critical in this industry, and especially in nonfiction, which is the area I know the best. Every book says something about your relationship with the person. So when you give somebody a book called The Book of Awesome, you're saying, you're awesome. That's why so many people bought this book for their teacher, okay? You are a badass. I mentioned it earlier. You were literally declaring that person to be a badass.
Right.
well, that's a nice thing that you want from somebody. Here's the mistake I made. This is called the happiness equation. As I started to sign books for it, we haven't talked about signing
No, it's
yet.
just mistake, but it's also sold a couple 100,000, right? So
Yeah, so
mistake in air quotes there.
Okay,
Yes.
but here's the mistake: is that people in lineup would say, "Oh, It's like, oh, should I make it out to you or your husband or wife?" And they'd be like, "Oh, I'll make it out to my husband." Oh, wait a minute. I can't make it out to him. He's gonna think that I think he's not happy. If I give you a book called The Happiness Equation, I'm declaring you to be unhappy.
Right.
If you were happy, you wouldn't need the book to fill you up. So does it pass this test of, could I give it to someone and what does that say? That's a huge thing. It's a huge thing, you know, because a lot of books, if you have a book so this book could have easily had the word anxiety in the title or resilience.
Right.
That's ultimately what this book is about, right? It could have been called 9 Ways to Live a Resilient Life. That's 9 things in it. They all teach you how to be a bit stronger. But then I thought, if I give you that book, I'm kind of declaring you to be a bit weak. Or like, would you buy that book for your anxious or resilience-needing teen? You might not, because then it looks like a book that they should be reading, or like you're like, hey, you need help.
Right.
Right? So you want the giftability to be strong. Okay?
So how would you look at my first book, Your One Word?
Yeah.
How would you?
It's called Your One Word?
It's called Your One Word. How would you?
Why did I think it was called Believe? Does it say believe on the cover as well?
No, I don't think it actually. It is like.
But Your One Word is believe.
Right. Yes. So it's helping other people find their one word.
Yeah. So it's not. I would think that is not.
It's not ownable. Your one word.
That's the first thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, ownable is a mistake for most books.
Yeah.
I call this the happiness equation. Gretchen Rubin owns that word.
Happiness.
The happiness project.
Right.
Right? So I'm entering into a market where someone else owns the word.
Right.
And that's not a good thing. So if you have a book come out that has like badass in the title,
Yeah.
you lose
Right.
off the bat. So Your One Word, what I hear personally, and I don't mean to say this in any way negative to you, it's like
That's great.
none of those 3 words are ownable.
Okay. Got that.
Believe is ownable.
So believe, and then how would you, for the giftability part,
Yeah.
Your One Word doesn't say anything.
Right, so you need a subtitle, or the graphic or the image has to communicate that I believe in you. How do we communicate that through your book? This is fun, we're like workshopping your book.
Yeah.
But we can say like, it's like, you know, something about that subtitle or that title or the graphic has to communicate that you believe in the person.
Right. I believe in you by giving you this
Maybe
book.
that's what it's called.
I believe in you.
Maybe.
Okay.
And I'm spitballing, okay, without knowing your book's content in particular in depth.
Yeah.
But I'm saying somehow the title has, so for example, Justin Halpern wrote a great book, it sold 1 million copies, called Shit My Dad Says.
Yeah.
It's totally ownable, because it's based on his Twitter feed, has the S word in the title, which is ownable. No one had done that at that time, it was 10 years ago. But then his second book was called I Suck at Girls.
Okay.
Didn't sell too well, and I don't think Justin would mind me saying that. I know him. But he didn't use the ownability from the first one. And now, what are you saying when I give that to you? You suck at girls?
Right.
Like, it doesn't give you something that you can get better at.
Right.
The 1 Minute Manager, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If I give you 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I'm saying you're an effective person, or you could be one.
Right. Aspirational.
1 Minute Manager, I'm saying you're a good manager, or you could be one. I can see it in you. It's a gift book. And so many books are gifts. So, you know, just think about the giftability of it. It's very important. Third piece of principle on title is searchability.
Okay.
Hate to get into the brass tacks of this stuff,
No,
but
it's great.
at the end of the day, people have to be able to find your book. So, meaning when they start typing into Amazon or Indigo or Barnes & Noble, or they start typing into Google, or they look for it in a bookstore, they have to be able to search for it and find it. This is why nobody can find the band named The Band.
Okay. Right.
Right? Or The. That's the hard one to find now. And why the band Always? Do you know the Toronto band Always?
No.
So they spell their name ALVV.
Okay.
AYS.
Okay.
It looks like a W.
Right.
But when it's ALV, they own all search.
Right.
It's weird to sort of back into search engine optimization on your title. I'm not saying it should be the core issue.
Right.
Ownable first.
Right.
Giftable second. These are priority order, but then searchable.
Okay.
And that's another problem with the happiness equation. Because when you go into happiness, there's too many. There's this gigantic section, and they all have the word happiness in the title.
Got it.
And now people will call me to my face and say like, "Oh, I loved your book, The Happiness Project." I'm like, "No, my book's The Happiness Equation."
Right.
And they're like, "Oh, what? I thought it was called." Just like I just did with you,
Yeah.
but it wasn't because of anything malicious. It
Yeah.
was just that in their brain it got confused because I'm entering a category that I don't own.
Yeah.
And I'm playing a game that I can't win. It's not giftable, it's not ownable, it can't take off.
Right.
Yeah. That's my personal view. You're right, it still sold a couple 100,000 copies, so it's not that, but I think it could have been another million copy book.
Okay, so play with the title on this one. What should it have been to follow these rules?
You know what's interesting? I wrote this book as a 300-page love letter to my unborn child on how to live a happy life.
Okay.
I actually, part of me wanted to call this book Dear Son, Love Dad.
Okay.
And I thought that would be great because I think it's ownable. It sounds
Yeah.
like a letter to your child. I think it's giftable. Because
Yeah.
if you're a son or a dad,
Yeah.
it's so,
Yeah.
Dear Son, Love Dad. And it basically says what you want someone to say. And I think then it might have taken off. But who's to say? That was just my other choice was Dear Son, Love Dad.
Would you?
It literally was. And again, back to our other video, the last one, it has to be authentic to the content.
Right.
I couldn't have,
Of course,
I couldn't
of
have called it like,
Yeah.
Climb Everest, and you open it, what's
Right.
this book about?
Right.
But because
why not Dear Son, You're Awesome?
Sure.
Okay.
That might have been even better.
Okay.
Right? I wish I had you 3 years ago when the book came out. Right?
When you go soft cover.
But when I'm standing at a book table and people, I say, which one do you want to give to your spouse? They always pick,
Yeah.
oh, I want him to be awesome, or her to be awesome,
Yeah.
right? And here's like, oh, they might think, I'll buy this one for myself.
Right.
Now, most of my advice in this whole video series is about what I know, which is physical books.
Right.
If you're an audiobook person and you're an audiobook junkie and you've succeeded in the audiobook universe, you might totally disagree with me because you could say, that's a self-fulfilling marketplace. You're buying an audiobook typically for you. It's hard to gift an audiobook. So maybe a book like 3 Ways to Get Rid of Your Anxiety, maybe that would work.
Right.
So
How do your sales break down percentage-wise?
I'm like almost all physical books.
All physical?
Like 90%.
Did you do your own audio for
I
these?
did my own.
You read it yourself?
Yeah, I read that my own self. I read that my own self. But my books, and so part of what I'm speaking to is my own experience. Of course, that's the nature of all these videos and all your channel is that you get my thing. You asked me because I sold 1 million books.
Yeah.
So I can only give you my view. But my books have sold like 90% physical books. And then maybe 10% are audio and the ebook.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how about?
Good or bad, but right or wrong, there's no.
No, I love it.
It's
That's
killed
great.
a lot of trees.
How about when you're going now to different languages? When you're selling,
Yeah.
you sold a bunch of foreign rights for
Yeah.
your books. Do you try to keep the word awesome in there? Do you?
Oh.
Do you find a Japanese version of it that kind of
Can I
works?
show you some covers?
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Read, feel, smile. Okay, so explain this to me.
I can't explain it. I have no idea.
Oh, okay, but
Here's the ones that you're talking about.
Amazon.com, you got some bestseller there, obviously.
Yeah.
But if I look at this is what? This
I
is
know.
this?
Yeah.
So this is this.
Yeah.
So it's 2 kids looking out a window with their dogs.
That's right.
Feels totally different than so. But does this bother you?
How about this one? This is I think this is Mandarin.
Okay, but that's closer.
There you
Book of
go. They got
Awesome
the
and
logo. That one's Thai, I think.
Right. So close.
Right.
That's
so
super close.
And that's what most of them did.
Right.
Most of them copied the black and the rainbow.
Right.
So, but you can see, like this one's Arabic.
Okay.
Happiness equation.
Yeah, it's so
They
close.
right.
They kept that happy face that you.
But then many of them go totally wildly different. Like that's
Right.
Right.
It looks like Amazon logo a little there.
that one doesn't. That looks like a textbook.
Yeah. What
You
language
know?
is that?
Don't know. Can't guess because I'd get it wrong and be embarrassed.
Happiness equation. Yeah, totally off. But
Yeah.
but is it the right call? Is it the wrong call? Is it what?
No idea.
Okay.
The thing about foreign rights is you really just don't know. I mean, communication's pretty small between. Like I get a note in my email box saying like you sold a foreign right, and I say woohoo, and I buy myself a nice dinner, and I get some copies mailed to me months later. But it's hard to really know. Once in a while, a publisher will get on the phone and say, "Hey, do you want to come down to Brazil?" And I'll be like, "Sure," and then I won't, or it just doesn't happen, or I do a couple radio interviews.
Right.
But it's not. It doesn't turn into anything big.
Right.
So just to summarize.
Yeah.
First thing is it has to be ownable. Grab a word, a phrase, a color, a size, a shape, something unique to you, okay? Right? Then it's got to be giftable. A high percentage of books are sold as gifts. Is it something that I would be proud to buy for somebody else? I would be proud to give to somebody else. It says something about me or our relationship as I exchange it. And third thing is searchable, findable. Can people, when they enter your category, locate you?
Yeah.
You know, that speaks to the search terminology of it, right? So when you type it into Amazon or whatever, you can find it, it comes up, that's big. You know, that might be a mistake for this one because there's a lot of books that probably have a very similar title and format. So we have to differentiate somehow, maybe that's with our logo, but the world's too big not to take these 3 principles seriously.
So let's workshop it a bit. I'll be selfish and hopefully people can learn from it too. So if I'm writing a book on, obviously believe is my thing, I own it.
Yeah.
It's what people know me for. I'm the belief guy. If I'm writing a book on purpose, the process I go through is what I call who, why, how. If you go who, your most important one word, your core value. Why, your purpose comes from your pain, why you do what you do. And then the how is how you're going to go out and execute it. If I'm doing a book around that, how should I incorporate those elements together?
Well, the thing you shouldn't do, and this is what happens a lot, is somebody with an extremely popular podcast or an extremely popular YouTube channel or an extremely popular Instagram feed does a book and they change the name. This is very common. I just told you we were going to call this thing The Other Side of the Pillow.
Right.
My blog's called 1,000 Awesome Things.
Right.
We went all the way to the finish line with The Other Side of the Pillow as the title. We made a cover.
Yeah.
And I won't use friends of mine as examples, but most of them do this. A guy who didn't do that is Humans of New York.
Right.
The channel's called Humans of New York. The book's called Humans of New York. It's our instinct as people to fudge with stuff too much. We want to change it. We want to mess it around. We want to make it better or different. No, if you have a popular podcast, use that title. Use that logo. Use that branding. You have a popular YouTube channel, you already have a popular title, logo, and branding. If people know you as Evan Carmichael or as the Belief Guy, great. But if they're like, if I say, oh yeah, you know Evan's channel, they're like, which one's that? I'm like, you know the guy that does like 10 rules, like, 10 leadership lessons from Steve Jobs, and then people are like, oh yeah, and they can picture the logo, and now they know it, because people don't, at least in my opinion, I'm a step removed from your world, so I could be wrong. I don't know any YouTube channels. I just know videos that I've watched and I've liked, and then I click something, right? Like I don't have a personal connection with too many, other than some friends. And so I would need in order for my brain to catch it in a bookstore, I need the exact same color, the exact same title, the exact same image that I see on the front page of that channel has to be right on that front of that book.
Okay.
Otherwise, I cannot make that leap.
Okay.
And maybe we did, here we go, I'm making leaps here.
Yeah.
That's a harder one to do. That's why this word awesome is on 6 of my book covers, and I probably won't use happiness again because I can't own it.
Right.
It's harder to gift. It's harder to find.
Intentional.
I learned the lesson. That's why I'm teaching you this thing, because it's like I learned it the hard way.
How to plant the right launch seeds.
Yes.
This is it. This is what everybody wants to know. How do we launch, Neil? What do you got?
Well, it's worth pointing out, Evan, I think that we're on number 6 out of 10, and we're only now getting to the launch.
Yeah.
So the previous 5 things on sharpening your voice, on finding your fans, on getting the title we just talked about, like this is all way before the book even comes out. So we're more than halfway through the 10-part video series, and only now are we starting to talk about the launch. And that's partly the principle here, is that so much of this is about pre-work, homework, groundwork, legwork, work, that's all in service of something that's gonna come later, okay? Now, let's talk about launch. We're gonna do 2 things on launch, and one of them is gonna be this one, and the next one is coming. The number 1 indicator for how successful a book is going to be is how successful its launch is.
Okay.
It is extremely difficult to have a poor book launch and to sell 1 million copies.
Okay.
It is much easier to have a huge book launch and then let it roll and roll and roll and roll. Because once a book gets there, grabs onto a couple bestseller lists, gets front of placement in some bookstores, gets on a couple big YouTube channels where people are talking about it, then the ripple effect can happen naturally. The word of mouth can happen naturally. The I heard someone told me about this can happen naturally. But in order to get that, you need the launch. In order to get the launch, you gotta plant some launch seeds. Think about a last time you or the viewers bought a book before it came out. Before it came out. You probably, for most people, would say never.
Yep.
Even though the number one indicator publishers and retailers use as a way to determine what a book's trajectory might be is actually the number of pre-orders a book gets. So this is a really weird paradox. You and me and the average person has never bought a book before it comes out. Average person, I've actually am starting to do it more and more now. But yet it's the biggest indicator because of course the people that are pre-ordering your book are like super fans.
Right.
And mom and dad, right? So the first thing you have to think about is why should someone pre-order your book? Why should they give you money when they can't even do the flippability test in the bookstore? They can't even hold the thing. So it harkens back to number 2 in this series where we talk about finding your fans. They have to know and trust your brain and your brand and your value and your writing already. So they think, well, this person's written all this stuff I like, so I'll probably like this. That's one. The second thing is you need to incentivize them. You need to offer them a bonus or an extra or some benefits to getting the book early. You can be very open about this. You can say, in the publishing world, pre-orders are very important because they determine how many books a retailer might buy. If they buy more, they feature it at the front of the store. It's all coming back to this pre-order thing. And you, my reader, because I found you, we're talking already, it's before the book comes out, I've met my reader, is for you, I know you probably don't want to do it. So if you pre-order it, here's what you get. I have a friend named Humble the Poet. He just launched a book called Unlearn. He said, anyone that pre-orders my book, I send you a personalized shout out.
Okay.
That's it. It didn't cost him any money. It takes some time. He does little selfie videos like, Diane in Puerto Rico, thanks so much for ordering. And just that, he sends it to them. So simple.
Yeah.
But it's a piece of additional value for someone that already has a platform and does not have a one-on-one connection. A lot of business authors typically offer like bonuses. So like a guy like James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, or Ryan Holiday, who we've talked about before, they might say, you might get an extra chapter that's not in the book. You might get a couple bonuses. You might get a worksheet on how you can use this at your company. You might get, and typically this stuff is delivered via PDF, auto email. You can do a lot of work to make the content really high value, but then it's as simple as a form on your website or a way to like register, and then it just kicks out the goodies.
Right.
Okay? And what are those goodies for you? It's up to you. For the Book of Awesome, I ordered 10,000. I was a bit ambitious.
Okay.
I ordered 10,000 magnets, postcards, and stickers saying things like, everyone needs some awesome or whatever. I think I printed some stickers that said like, I love snow days and I love old dangerous playground equipment, some mention of the book. And literally my mom and my sister like stuffed envelopes and hand wrote and mailed them out.
That's wild.
And I know it doesn't sound like much, but maybe 1,000 people pre-ordered the book from that. And I ordered 10,000, so my parents still have like 9,000 of these things in their closet. But 1,000 was enough of a sign to the publishers and the retailers that, hey, 1,000 people bought this thing in advance before it even came out. So that's one way to plant your launch seed, is work really hard on what you're offering someone in order to do the pre-order campaign. And like I said, it could just be as a selfie video. It's something like little fun. It doesn't have to, I wouldn't do the mailing thing again because it's a huge logistic nightmare.
Right.
Right? And you have to pay for all the postage. Number 2, what's the other way that you decide whether or not to buy a book when it first comes out? Very simple for everybody. It's the same thing. Reviews. If I tell you that a book came out 2 weeks ago and I send you the link on an online retailer's website and it has 1 review and it's 5 stars, you're like, the guy's mom or the woman's husband,
right,
or the person's dad, like you're like, that's not a real review.
Yeah.
So it's actually quantity of review that matters more than the rating at the beginning, because most books will have 2 reviews, 5, maybe 10. So how do you get a lot of reviews? It's a challenging puzzle. Amazon knows that it's a challenging puzzle, so they offer a service called the Vine program, where you can convince your publisher to buy reviews, what that means is that people that are part of this program choose your book. They choose from many products. They give it a legitimate, authentic review. I know this for sure because people review my book. They're like, 1 star. Even though I got this for free, it still stinks, right? So it's not like you're getting like baked reviews 5 star. You're genuinely going to get whatever people's authentic reviews, but it gets the number of reviews up.
Even though they're more likely to be strangers who don't know your brand, who are most likely going to review it lower than somebody who's a super fan.
I think that is a possible risk too. The other thing I do, and I've done this on all my books, although I'm surprised more people don't do it, is before your book comes out, something else is printed beforehand. It's called a review copy. Sometimes called an ARC, A-R-C, advanced review copy, or a galley. Okay, so. At the time of recording this video, this book has a galley, but it's not come out. This doesn't come out till November.
Right.
So normally, a publisher says, "Okay, Neil, you get 10 copies of a galley," and I always say, "Yeah, can I have 1,000?"
Right.
And they usually say yes. And if worst case scenario, they say, "Oh yeah, but it'll be like $1 a book or something." From the time the galleys are printed to the time the book comes out, I literally just keep like 5 in my backpack at all times.
Yeah.
No major vested interest. Other than when I bump into somebody on a plane, when I meet somebody on a bus, when I'm at my in-laws' house with 10 people at a Christmas party, whatever, I like give people the book in advance. Why do I do that? So that when the book comes out, I can say, hey, everyone I gave the book in advance to, if you read it, and some don't, then could you leave me a review? And that helps the book get like 100 reviews, or 50 reviews even, out of the gate.
Right away.
And even 50 is enough of a sign so that when someone visits the website, they see that the book is kind of being read and they get an honest opinion. I never ask anyone for a 5-star review, ever. I never say like, please make a 5-star. I don't do that. I say, can you give me an honest review? You just want an honest review. And people are just looking for someone besides the author telling them what the thing is.
Right.
Right?
Are those 2 good numbers for somebody who's just trying to get started? 1,000 pre-order copies and 50 reviews out of the gate.
I love the way your brain works. You want the actual numbers. You know,
I know it's but like just we're ballparking.
I know some
ideas.
big authors.
Yeah.
I know some very big authors that they'll get 10 or 20,000 pre-orders.
Okay.
And now we're talking, because that might even be enough to crack the New York Times bestseller list on the first day.
Right.
Right. That's amazing. I'm sure Michelle Obama got 100,000 pre-orders. Right.
What do you need to hit the New York Times bestseller? Is it 10?
There's no absolute number.
Right, but rough. 10 to 20?
1,000?
Yeah.
That would be a good general rule of thumb, but I say there's no absolute number because I know people that have sold more and have not made it, and I know people have sold less, not made it. It also depends on at Christmas time, it might be 50,000.
Yeah.
In February, when no one's buying books, it might be 3,000, and your book comes out that month. And it's curated, which means the New York Times can decide what's in, what's out.
Right.
It's not like a spit out of BookScan or BookNet, literally the Nielsen's POS sales data. It's not that. Some newspapers use that. I believe the Wall Street Journal does. I know in Canada the Globe and Mail does. But the New York Times is editorialized, so you don't really know how to make it, and they protect the fact that you don't know how to make it. Right? So we can get into a whole deep conversation about how to make New York Times bestseller list. The only way I've made New York Times bestseller list is when I have national media. So if I'm on the Today Show, then my books ratchet up there because people all saw me on some big TV show. But even that, these days, is much more splintered. Less people watch TV, more people watch Evan Carmichael.
Right?
And all the other people on YouTube and all the other people on Instagram and television, all that stuff. Okay, so I said 2 things already. Number 1, I was just talking about reviews, okay? And before that I was saying pre-orders. Okay, what's the third way you can try to plant launch seeds? Okay, here's the third way. Find 1,000 tribes who naturally exist, who naturally want your book. So, for a book about gratitude, what I spent some time doing is saying, who online is already in this purview, who already loves this stuff? Teachers are a good example. They want exercises for their classroom. What teacher websites? I went to go speak at teacher conferences for free. I just let me tell them about it, you know? This book is about resilience. So we're thinking okay, what are some tribes, some groups that are naturally oriented towards resilience? And what are their podcasts? And even though the podcast might have 500 listeners total, they might be 500 people who are naturally oriented towards your book's theme. So yes, it's nice when you make the Today Show.
Right.
And of course it will help your book if you're going to be on Good Morning America or the front page of the Wall Street Journal, but that's mass. And there's something about small, targeted, repeated, and you can do a lot of that stuff before the launch.
So what's the process to drill down? If you said teachers.
Yeah. Okay.
So what am I doing? I'm going to LinkedIn and looking for teachers?
Okay. So, let's talk about teachers, for example. What I would do is I would go to the Apple Podcast app, and I would type in any search term you could think of if you were a teacher. So my wife is a teacher. Mm-hmm. So I would say, Leslie, what podcast would you listen to? Oh, well, my friends are listening to this one. Or she goes on there and types in like education. Like you can type in all these search terms looking for them. The next thing is look at the number of reviews. That we're doing the same thing on each other. How many reviews does the podcast have? 0? 50? 1,000? It tells you something about how popular it is, how people listen to it. And there's nothing wrong with a 0 review show. It's just like, check, then listen to it. Mm-hmm. Do you think you might connect with the host? Do you think you might connect with, do they even have guests on the show?
Right.
Otherwise, you're pitching a show and they're like, we don't even have guests, dumbass. Like, didn't you listen to it? Right? So you got to do your homework. Search for the shows. This is just, I'm just talking about podcasts.
Yeah.
Just searching for them, then checking reviews, then listening to them. Then, once you have got that far, you personally, not your assistant, not your team, you. Hi, my name is Neil Pasricha. I listened to this episode. Here's why I liked it. I have a new book on this theme. Here's why I think you might like it. Can I send you a copy of the book? That's it. And then all you do is follow up 30 days later saying, did you get the copy? Do you think it would be a nice fit for a conversation? And if they don't reply to you ever again, worst case scenario is you lost an email of time and you lost a book of time.
Right, and you listen to a podcast at a time.
Exactly.
Are you then physically mailing out the book and like signing it and like bookmarking page 42 because that's geared towards teachers? Or are you just ordering from Amazon and you send it off to them?
Yeah, I mail them out myself. I can't order from Amazon, the book's not out yet. Right? This is all before, this is all the 3 things I'm talking about now. We'll get to the launch in the next video.
Yeah.
But the next thing I'm talking about is, this is stuff before the launch. Now your publisher, if you are going through a traditional publisher, should be able to help you out with that. You can start feeding them names and addresses and saying, hey, these are like 30 big podcasters that I think I could be on. Yeah. These are 30 websites. These are 30 communities. It has to be authentic. Here's the thing.
Right.
You can't just like start pitching people randomly. You genuinely have to find them, and they exist. The world's so big. How many YouTube channels are there oriented around results? I don't know. I haven't started looking yet. But when I start looking and I find them and I watch videos and there's a connection, then maybe we could do something together.
So you're in that phase now for this book.
Yes.
Right? You don't have the physical galleys yet, but you got the e-copies, you got this. You made this just for this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
No, I said I was coming on Evan Carmichael. They're like, Evan Carmichael, print the biggest sign you can get.
Used to fit through the door. I'm grateful. So your book comes out in November. We're filming this in end of June.
Yes.
You're already starting to planting the seeds. Uh-huh. How much of your time are you dedicating now
towards? So you can decide how like the things I just mentioned.
It's time.
It's time.
Yeah.
It's time. I'm talking pre-order campaign. I'm talking 1,000 reviews or 1,000 galleys that you try to get reviews on. I'm talking looking for 1,000 tribes. The average person who's listening to this should already feel exhausted.
Right.
But we're talking about selling 1 million books. We're not talking about selling 1,000.
Right.
If it was selling 1,000, I wouldn't bother with this. This episode would be moot. But you wanted me to come talk about 1 million, so I'm telling you, you got to grind. You got to hustle. And all these 3 things I'm talking about make a huge difference, and they come from very authentic places. Trying to give your own readers extra value. Yeah. Trying to give people books for free so they can read it. You want people to read the thing, right? And then see if they want to. I'm never doing anything pushy. If you wanted to go all in, you could hire 3 research assistants. You've taught me that. You can hire research assistants, and you could say, hey, try to find podcasts. Here's my themes. Here's my principles. Then feed me the ones that I should listen to. Then you listen to them. Then you come up with like a targeted pitch letter. Okay? You edit the pitch letter, the top line, the bottom line. You have a 3 or 5 sentence email. You don't want it to be too long or no one will read it. You have people ready. You have an assistant ready to be mailing stuff. I mean, this cavern is deep.
Yeah.
How deep do you want to go? But the reason it's all before the launch is because you can record a lot of these podcasts and episodes before the launch even happens. Mm-hmm. So when it comes out, what you're hoping for, when the launch happens, you're hoping for this surround sound effect.
Right.
You want people to be like, I heard of that book somewhere and I don't know where.
Everybody's
That's the biggest compliment you can get.
So let's break down yours quickly just for timeline. So we're 4 or 5 months away from this hitting bookstores.
I haven't even done most of what I'm telling you to do yet.
Okay, great. So how long did this book take for you to write?
Oh, okay. Oh, you want the whole history of it? Okay. Yeah, I wrote the book in 2017.
Okay.
In 2018, I signed with Simon & Schuster. We went through a long number of edits back and forth.
So it took you a year to write it?
Yeah. Well,
and then a year to edit it?
It took me probably, I wrote it in a sprint, and I wrote it probably 3 months, but I didn't do anything else for 3 months.
Right.
Like I didn't do anything else, I just wrote it, period. Right? Then signed with the publisher. So we put it into a book proposal.
Right.
We pitched it for a publisher. Usually what happens is people pick the most money that they get. Right? Like this publisher offered me 10 grand, this publisher offered me 50, this publisher offered me 1,000 or 100. Then you go with the biggest. That's usually what people do, unless they have a vested relationship or they really want a particular editor or they have somebody has a vision for it that you want to do. It's like how you sell a house.
Yep.
You're like, you usually go with the highest bidder unless you're like, well, we really like that family.
Right.
We want them to live in our house. Then you might go somewhere else. Okay? Then you find an editor. What you're doing when you find a publisher, by the way, is finding an editor.
Right.
Someone whose voice can align with yours. Someone who can see where you could go. Amy Einhorn said to me, my editor for the Book of Awesome, it's not a blog to book. It's not a printout of your blog. It's a hardcover. It's for soccer moms. It's a gift book. She positioned it that way, and I was captivated by her vision. So that's partly what you're choosing when you choose a publisher. You're choosing the editor that's going to edit. In this case, I was lucky to have 2 editors, Lauren Spiegel in the US and Nita Pronovost in Canada, both amazing editors, and been really lucky to work with them. So Nita did the lead role in editing with 2 editors. One person's taking the lead. Nita was the lead. She edited multiple versions. Then
and that's a full year of editing?
Like, yeah, basically. It's like, as if I did the math, I'm like, yeah, it's probably a year of just editing.
Okay.
Like, the way editing works is, here you go, here's a 300-page Word document, and then a month later, they're like, here you go back.
Right.
And you're like, okay. A month later, you're like, here you go back.
Track changes.
So it takes, track changes. Like,
here we go.
And it's like a month at a time, this gigantic hot potato, right?
Right.
Like, poof, poof. It's like the world's slowest game of Pong, So it's like really like that. So I'd say it takes a year, but like it's just like I'm hustling and then I take a break and then do something else. Then, of course, another kind of 6 to 9 months of putting it in the catalogs for the book publishers, equipping the sales force with the information. They can tell the retailers about it. You have to sell it to the retailers. How many copies is Walmart going to buy? 0? 100,000? 50,000? They decide based on their space in store, how many books they're going to feature. Should this be one of the ones that they feature? Why or why not? What's their focus in their store? And this is all happening through the back end. Mm-hmm. Then it gets time 4 months out. Yeah, now we're in the process of like covers finalized, right? We're in the process of, I'm looking for blurbs now. Whose name is going to be at the top saying this book is good? Like we're asking people to do that, right? So there's all that kind of stuff. And then there's like first pass, second pass, third pass, which means the final book is given to you and you find out that there's 10 commas missing, okay? Or you're like, oh, I don't want that person in my acknowledgements anymore. We had a breakup, whatever it is, you change.
Right.
And then you keep going, and then you keep going, and then this is all the pre-launch stuff. And now I'm talking pre-launch campaign, reviews campaign, and finding 1,000 tribes that are related to your book's central theme.
And once you have your launch date, you personally, Neil Pasricha, goes hardcore on the seeds 4 months before? 3 months before, 6 months
I also want to take like summer vacation with my family. Okay. So, I might not be as hardcore as I was when I was young, single, and alone, working 22 hours a day. You get out what you put in.
Right.
But I also have a reputation now where I can call up some old friends and be like, I was on your podcast for the last one, or I was on your, and they're like, yeah, great to have you back. So there's less work the more you do it.
Right.
I'm talking to the first-time author or the first-time person who I think is watching this saying, that's why I'm laying out all the groundwork deeply, right?
So for that person...
like pre-order campaign, by the way, the first time I had no email list.
Right.
Now I've got a big email list, so it's a little easier to get pre-orders, right?
So if they've gone for the first-time author, they've written the book, they've gotten it edited, I have something ready to sell now.
Uh-huh.
How long should I wait until I actually sell it So I'm doing on pre-marketing.
6 months probably?
6 months.
6 months, 3 to 6 months at least.
Yeah.
Just because of all the stuff I'm telling you about, it takes a long
it's work.
time.
Yeah.
It takes a really long time.
That's a full-time job. That's a 3-day a week. I mean, yes, what you put in, what you put out. I always try to nail you on these specifics.
Yeah.
But for someone who's trying to budget their time, is it like, this is full-time for 6 months?
If you were to put a full-time job into this, taking it very seriously with the ultimate goal of spreading your work, I feel like your book is going to be a hit. Because you're sowing all those seeds to bloom when the book comes out. And how great would it be when your book comes out if you have 1,000 people, you said 1,000 true fans, already saying, right when it comes out, I already read it, I really liked it, you should get it too, and check out the reviews. There's already 100 up there somehow. Yeah. You know, and of course you get a few saying, those are fake, but they don't realize that all you've been doing for months is like giving people the book so they can read it and check it out, right? And then if you listen to the podcast they like on the topic that you've written about, or the YouTube channel that they're already watching, and you're on there, because you took time to like connect with somebody and offer them some real value. You could also do things for the channel. The best thing to do for the channel or the podcast is to give them something that they want. Back in the day, this used to be, would you like 5 free copies for a contest? Right. Right? Would you like me to do something for your channel that would help you? Like, what would the person want that would be helpful for them, and give them that. You go on YouTube channels or podcasts that have nothing to do with your perfect theme. Because the theme, like my podcast is called 3 Books. I'm looking for the 3 most formative books of inspiring people, right? I've interviewed Malcolm Gladwell, Chris Anderson, Judy Blume. Partly they come on my show because they have a book out. But when they come on my show, I ask them about the 3 books that they've read. Right. Actually, it's not related. So you end up doing stuff like that that's not perfectly related, but still it's giving them what they want. Right? So I'm only trying to serve. You want to give people what they want for their channel, for their podcast. And then if in the intro, outro, they're like, and he's got a new book out, that's enough. You can't be harping on the thing forever. Cool. I love it. And take it seriously for months. It's a full-time job. Or, you know. Or it won't work. Or it won't work. Or you get to, we got another video coming on called Get Lucky. You could just get lucky. This video, this Teach me that. Forget video, all the others. Well, this video sequence is not for the people that get lucky. This video is for people that work hard at it. Because that's what I can talk about. This is episode 7 where we're talking about doing the launch hustle. What do you got, man? Okay, well, it's almost like you just, on the last video we just did, right, chapter 7, episode 7. This is 7. Last one was 6. Okay, on 6. Planting to launch seeds. Planning to launch seeds. We just basically, you squeezed out of me. Okay. You got to work like full time for 3 to 6 months. Okay. And I'm like, do I really do that? I guess I do. But now we're talking about the actual launch hustle. Yep. Now you do. Okay. This is like the book is out today. Yeah. Okay. You are going. I think you need to treat a book launch like a full-time job for as long as you can afford to. Okay. Okay. So some people are like, well, I have a full-time job, so this might not work. Other people might say, well, I'm working on some other project. This happens to a lot of people, right? They're like, I have a full-time YouTube channel I'm running. I have a full-time podcast I'm doing. Like, I can't dedicate 3 to 6 months. But if you got nothing else going on, or you're able to sublimate, what's the word? Like, put that stuff under this, lower prioritize that stuff, then I'm saying go 3 to 6 months with your book launch being your full-time job. Wow, okay. Okay. Parts of that might be things that the publisher organizes for you, or with you, a book tour maybe do some bookstore events, right? Maybe do some PR, some press. But I need you, if you really want to sell 1 million books, you have to think of it like a book launch is like your full-time job for 3 to 6 months. Okay, so the first thing you got to do, right before your book comes out, right as your book coming out, is thinking, okay, I just spent 2 years writing my book, selling my book, editing my book, designing my book, working on my book, and right at the end, you have to think, wait a minute, no one cares about my book. No one knows who I am. I mean nothing in the grand scheme of the universe. What people are caring about or thinking about is a question mark that you have to answer. Okay. What's in the news? What are the major trends? What are the natural issues of our times? What's the national conversation that's happening? Okay? So, is it about free speech? Is it about rising anxiety trends in adolescence? Is it about bullying? Is it about gun violence? find those things. Find those things and figure out how or if your work fits into that naturally. So I'm saying you spend 2 years writing this thing, now you got your work of art, it's all ready to go, and right before it comes out, you got to think, wait a minute, I mean nothing. What's everyone else talking about? And only if you can answer that question can you do what I think is most important, is write your talking points, okay? So when the Book of Awesome came out, I was working at Walmart. I worked there for 10 years. There was a guy in the PR department. He's like, oh, your book's coming out next week. I said, yeah. He said, what are your talking points? I was like, what's a talking point? What are you talking about? Okay. He's like, your 4 or 5 points. I was like, what 4 or 5 points? What are you talking about? He's like, well, what are you going to say when you're interviewed? And I'm like, I'm going to answer whatever they ask me. He's like, oh, no, don't answer whatever they ask you. Figure out what you're trying to tell them. So I worked with this guy. His name is Kevin. He worked with me at Walmart. He's like, oh, my gosh. He's like, right now everyone's talking about anxiety, okay? He's like, does this help with that? I said, well, yeah, of course it helps with that. I'm using it to get out of my own, I went through a divorce. I lost a friend, so of course it's helping with my mental. He's like, perfect. So why don't you say, that is one of your lines, and for those who are battling with mental illness or depression, they'll relate to that. So there's one talking point. What else? And he kept pushing me on this thing until I had like 4 or 5 sentences that literally became, Evan, I'm not joking, the same interview I did 50 times, right? But your talking points are actually hung on your book's content and the national conversation. You've got to slip into something that people are already thinking and talking about. I'm not saying that this would have fit into gun violence.
Right.
Like, you can't connect what doesn't exist. But I'm saying there's big conversations happening out there that you are not part of. Could you be part of them? How so?
Right.
Right?
So what was a big one for you for this one, Book of Awesome?
Book of Awesome was, at the time the Book of Awesome came out in 2010.
2010.
Yeah, it was like stock market's at an all-time low. Ice caps are melting. There's like huge unemployment rates. There's pirates. Like literally there was pirates in the seas. I don't know if you remember, that's a big story about pirates. So the talking point is, in a world that's gone to crap, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Cheer yourself up the way I cheer myself up, one awesome thing a day in order to put myself in a better mood. Here I am a year later. Am I perfectly fixed? No. But in a world where the news is so heavy, this book gave me a little break.
Right.
So anyone that was listening was like, wait a minute, that's me. I'm so depressed by the news. It's overwhelming. I've lost my job. They connect with that, okay? With this book, I'm discovering, and I know it's partly, some of it should naturally happen once you write it, it's like there's a lot of anxiety. Mental illness is rising. Depression's rising. Loneliness is rising. There's a reason why we put, and you can't see it in the frame here, but it says the subheadline is 9 Secrets to Getting Stronger and Living an Intentional Life. We put that phrase getting stronger in there because I was like, that's what's missing for me and for a lot of people is strength. Right now in the world with how much stress there is, we have 2 choices. We can hide at home and put our heads under the covers, or we can thicken our skin and be ready to face that future with a more confident and a more kind of able-bodied approach to the stresses that are going to come our way. And so I haven't weaved it into a talking point yet, but you see, a talking point is a small, simple sentence that people can get and understand. That's why your book is relevant for the times. Because if it's not relevant for the times, it's not relevant.
And is that channel specific? So if you're going to do a national newspaper, obviously you're targeting national topics. If you're going to come on to an entrepreneur channel, you're going to talk about it, how it relates to entrepreneurship.
Sure.
Is that?
Yeah, so I think write the talking points as a core first, right?
So that would be like strength.
Yeah, so this one's
intentional living.
Exactly. So
right.
the themes that come out of the book naturally,
right?
And some of them might come from specific chapters,
right?
So I have a whole chapter in here about how to be a big fish in a small pond. I have a whole thing. It was a story that the dean of Harvard told me about when I was there, and it was like a thing I've used in my whole life. When I started speaking, I asked to speak in the lowest speaking bracket, not the highest, because I wanted to practice on smaller stages. So I share that story, and it's like, maybe that would work well on a channel that's to do with getting out of a breakup, or getting post-divorce, or after losing your job, because you're trying to build your confidence back up. So then I can use that talking point. So it's like, Yeah, you got to write your talking points to your book, but then to your point, you have to tailor them to who you're talking with.
Right.
But if you don't, 2 weeks before my book came out, or a week before, the guy's like, what are you talking about? So I was like, I don't know what you're, like, I thought you would just answer. You have to know what you're going to say first and how it hooks into. Why should anyone have you on their TV show? Why should anyone have you on the radio show? What's the reason? You have to know the answer to that.
I'm assuming with a lot of these talking points, there's multiple stories underneath that you could potentially tell. So if you're talking about growing stronger, it could be about how to deal with divorce, how to deal with a friend dying, how to deal with trying to sell a new book, how to deal with rejection from whatever, how to deal with walking away from a publisher. It could all be related to growing stronger, but the story that you tell could be contextual to the audience that you're talking to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I asked, before I did this video, obviously I was I was like, I'm going to talk about how to sell 1 million books. I was like, I never talked about this before. Like, I'm nervous to do this video. I was like, this is a question I've never been asked. I always just told people, like, just happen random. Like, I don't know. But you forced me to think about it. So I gave it a lot of thought. And I also interviewed other authors who've done it. And I've asked them, what do you think works? And the thing that came back from a few authors, which I think is related to this point about talking points, is find a controversy. In particular, try to find something that people agree or disagree with in equal parts. And sometimes the controversy can be made known to you. So this book is called The Happiness Equation. It has 9 secrets in it. One of them is called Never Retire. That's a big thing I wrote about, whatever. I didn't think much of it. It's certainly something I believe. I had all the research in there. I have lots of reasons why you should never retire. If you want to be happy, don't retire. Retiring, you're giving up I have all this research about it. You're giving up your social connections, you're giving up the structure in your life, you're giving up the learning, you're giving up the story, you're part of something bigger. Don't retire, it's dumb, right? Turns out people who are retired don't like to hear that.
Right.
So I'm suddenly doing national call-in radio shows, taking calls, like me and the host, and they're like, well, I don't know what this guy thinks. I'm retired and I love playing golf every day, so you're a bozo. And I was like, but what you're hearing there is something that's controversial.
Yeah.
So then I wrote an article about that chapter for Harvard Business Review. It went viral. Like it gets a lot of pickup. So then I'm talking to you now 3 years after this came out. Tomorrow I'm on national NPR radio talking about Never Retire. Still 3 years later. I did the launch hustle 3 years ago. But still that point turned out to be controversial. And if it's controversial, people want to talk about it. I had another chapter in that book called How to Make More Money Than a Harvard MBA, okay? Now that title is purposely controversial, and you can do that, like The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. That's a purposely controversial title.
Yeah.
Nobody works 4 hours a week. Everyone works 40. Tim does certainly not work 4 hours a week.
Right.
But the title has baked in controversy, so you're like, what? What does that mean? How can you do that? How will I discover? You know, how about Chris Guillebeau? The $100 startup.
Yeah.
Controversial. How can you start a company for $100? Probably, I don't know, I haven't asked Chris directly, I'm gonna guess that's his best-selling book, because it's the most controversial title. How about The 1 Minute Manager? Huge, popular, million-copy best-selling book. How do you manage somebody in 1 minute? In fact, 4-Hour Workweek is kind of like related to that, right? Even the things that are like, you know, like, eat chocolate and be skinny, or like, I'm making it up, but like if it's so outlandishly controversial, of course people are gonna wanna talk about it. They wanna know why you're full of crap to try to disprove you, or they wanna see what you're selling in the remote chance you might be telling something truthful, right?
So back to what we've talked about in previous videos, most of it is still, like, it still has to be authentic, still has to be core to your message.
Of course.
You believe in not retiring.
I do.
But then it's looking through your content and saying, okay, what in here could be controversial in this modern time?
Exactly. Or literally what question, like that call-in show thing, it came up, I learned it was controversial.
Expect it.
I didn't know. It was because the host read my book and he kept picking on that. So I was like, why is he picking on? And then the calls kept coming in, they were angry at me. And I'm like, I'm the awesome guy. No one yells at me usually. But they're yelling at me, and I'm like, then you realize there's something there.
So what's controversial in here?
So many things are in this book. So one of the most controversial things I say is this idea of telling yourself a different story. Okay, so for my podcast, 3 books, I interviewed Seth Godin, and one of his 3 most formative books, the whole premise of my podcast is tell me the 3 books that changed your life, was a book called The Book of Est. Okay? So Erhard seminars training from like the 70s. He read the book, it hit him, and he realized I go to a good school. I'm actually not too badly off. Yet the story in my mind is that I'm, aw shucks, I'm always like, I'm pessimistic, I'm glass half empty. Most people are like this in general. And he's like, I just realized I could just tell myself a different story. So I researched this topic for the book, and turns out, this is, you might say it's ignorance is bliss, but I'm gonna go out in this book and say, honestly, if you're getting through a breakup, if you're getting through a divorce, and I go through my own things in here, and I won't go through them in depth now, but I talk about like body issues I've had, all this stuff like that. Just tell yourself a different story, man. Like just almost like lie to yourself, okay? Like I have a chapter in here called Have You Had Enough One Night Stands?
Right.
Kind of a controversial title. The premise of that is though, is that when you go through a breakup, there's research that shows that the average person has 16 relationships, has 16 one-night stands, has broken up with 3 times, has cheated on once, like all this whole litany of terrible stuff that you would never want. But the research shows that that's the average steps that the average person goes through to get to a solid, loving marriage, if they get to that. So the question to ask yourself when you go through these breakups is, have you had enough of them? Because that's the path to get there. That's the path to get there. So tell yourself a different story, meaning that if something really bad happened, just lie to yourself to get out of it.
Right.
Okay? Like get your mindset snapped out of it. And 2 is, have you had enough one-night stands? You personally, Evan Carmichael, have you? No, I'm just kidding.
But that's it.
You haven't had enough. And
Right.
and my point is, it's enough of a headline that it could grab someone's
Right.
like.
So would you do a call-in show
Yeah.
with like, hey, give me your worst problems? Give me what
Yeah.
you're buried under a mountain of crap right now, and you feel like you have the worst life of any human alive. Call in, and then you say, hey, let me fix your story. Like
Exactly the kind of stuff you could talk about, or like literally, like I think right now in the world, and that's partly why I wrote the book, is we feel like crap.
Yeah.
In general, as people. Like we live in the most abundant time ever in human civilization, and yet we're the least happy to be here. Loneliness rates have doubled since the 1980s. 40% of us live alone now, more than ever before. Anxiety is up, mental illness is up, depression's up, suicide's up. What's going on?
Yeah.
And when you talk to people, it's like, well, I compare myself to others on Instagram, I've got social anxiety, I never turn my phone off, I'm sleeping. There's all this litany of technological stuff and psychological stuff that's happening to us. So part of the premise of You Are Awesome is to go through all of that and remind us that, you know what, you are awesome. And here's some of the ways to rethink the failures and stresses and pitfalls you're having in your life so that you can get through them and get over them and be okay. Part of the reason I wrote this book is because something's going to happen to me at some point. I'm not going to be here forever. Like, chances are my kids are still going to be alive. And I know that their life is relatively soft. There's no starvation. There's no famine. There's no Great Depression. There's no economic collapse. We got clean water in our taps. So when they hit real hardfalls, real hardships, a real breakup, a real divorce, loss of a friend, an accident, an illness, loss of job, they're not going to be equipped with the tool set to get through it. So the book is an offering to people, like my children, on like how to navigate those challenges when they come, because we're all an army of porcelain dolls right now. You get a nasty email from your boss, people cry about it for 3 days. Like, we're soft. Me too. So it's a book to toughen ourselves up.
Okay. What I loved in that sentence was also you said part of the reason why I wrote this book.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's a reason why.
You gotta have that.
And you wrote that in 2010.
So So if you share that, if you share your authentic reason for writing it, people love that. I was going through a divorce and I lost a good friend. I wrote an awesome thing a day for 1,000 straight days. When I got remarried, my wife Leslie told me she was pregnant on the plane home from our honeymoon. When we landed in Toronto, I wrote a 300-page love letter to my unborn child on how to live a happy life. That's this book. After we had children, my children inspired me to see the world through their eyes. They love being rained on. They love playing in the sand. This is a reminder to adults and children of all ages on how to see awesome everywhere. Now that my kids are growing up a little bit, I see that they have some stress and anxiety. I can't understand it because the world seems so easy to me. It seems like we have everything. But I talk to parents, other parents, and they say, we also have anxiety about our kids' anxiety. In a world where everyone's a bit soft, how do we strengthen ourselves? How do we toughen ourselves up? And how do we navigate those inevitable failures and bumps in the road? This book is that book for my kids. So it's like, those are the authentic stories of the books, but then people will be gripped a bit more by it because you're vulnerable enough to share it. Not everyone goes on TV talking about their divorce. It's not like I was not comfortable doing that at the beginning. I just said, I wrote this I like warm underwear from the dryer. Like my talking points originally had nothing to do with that. I was not comfortable at first. But the more authentic you can share your story, the more people will be attracted to it.
Well, we started off this clip talking about how you have to make your message fit the times.
Yes.
I guess what's going through my head is the reason why you wrote the book also fits the times.
Because you're living in the times.
Exactly. You're a product of the
times. So no matter who's watching this video right now, chances are the thing you're writing is relevant.
Right.
Because otherwise you wouldn't have written it.
So just explaining that story.
Wrote it. I'm a writer. I said writ. Don't edit that out. That's funny.
But explaining the story, the reason, the authentic, vulnerable piece of why you're creating, even with fiction, like why do you create these fictional characters?
Yeah.
What's the story behind it?
There's always themes underneath the story,
course.
Right?
And explain it. If art makes people feel, and writing is art.
Exactly.
And so what's the feeling that you had in creating this? What's the intention behind it and then being able to share it?
So I interviewed Angie Thomas for my podcast. She wrote a book called The Hate You Give. It's a fiction, young adult novel, sold many millions of copies. It's about a black unarmed teen getting shot by a white police officer.
Okay.
As a young adult book, when you talk to her, she's angry about racism in our society.
Right.
And that is palpable when you read her beautiful fictional tale of what happens in a society, in a village, in a school, when somebody is shot, an unarmed black teen is shot by a police officer. Of course the book sold millions of copies because it touched on the deep emotional nerve center that she felt so passionately about that we could feel while reading it.
And whatever you're feeling going through, chances are there's a ton of people feeling the same thing.
Here's the first rule to selling 1 million books: feel something.
Yeah.
And make that feeling go into your work. If you got nothing inside you, then you can't have anything on the paper.
Sign, sign, sign.
Sign, 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 baby.
What do you mean?
Well, on an earlier part of this series, for those that have watched kind of all the ones leading up to this point, I shared how most of my books have sold in physical copies as opposed to audio or digital. Okay? So this advice is a little bit biased towards physical. Here's the thing. A signed book is special. It's special. How many signed books do you have on your bookshelf, if any? 0, 1?
I got some. I got one from you.
You got one from me?
Yeah, this one. You gave me this one. Signed.
And have you thrown it out?
No, it's there on my bookshelf.
Because you probably won't throw it out because it's signed.
It's Neil Pasricha's signature. He touched this book. There's DNA on it.
Exactly, a DNA. You got my DNA. Uh-oh. But the point is, then you can say to your partner or your husband or your wife, you can say, like, check it out. I got a signed book, or I got a signed book for you.
Right.
When you move, it moves with you. I'm at an age now where I'm starting to get people saying, like, I have it in college and I got it in high school and I've carried it with me. Like, there's something special about a signed book. It is unique. It is rare. It is human. We live in a sea of algorithms now, people. If you can get something that's a real human connection, it's valuable. So the first thing to do, and by the way, it's not just valuable for the person who has the book, it's valuable for you as the author because signed books have a rate of sale that are 5 to 10 times higher than a standard book.
Okay.
The proof is you walk into a bookstore and the one at the front that says autographed copy, first of all, it's partly placed there because it was autographed.
Right.
So it gets better placement largely. It's not returnable. So the store's going to keep it there because it's like a special book signed in the store. They're not going to send it back. And thirdly, someone's more likely to buy it because they're like, oh, this is special. I couldn't just buy this online. I couldn't just go home and buy this tomorrow. I just bought a signed Tom Wolfe book for like $35 at an airport in Milwaukee because it was signed.
Right.
I didn't want to carry this giant tome home, but I was like, Tom Wolfe's dead. This book is signed. I got to get this copy. And I paid a lot of money for it. Signed books are special. Now, how do you do it? First thing is you got to equip the bat belt.
The bat belt. Okay.
This is the bat belt. I recommend a skinny, thin, black pencil case. I keep this in my backpack at all times. Okay. I have had this thing on me for 10 years. If I lose it, I'll have to buy a new one. What's in the bat belt? Okay, first thing you need, this is important, signed by author stickers. Your signed book is worthless if no one knows it's signed.
Right.
And half the stores have their own stickers. The other half don't. So you got to order your own online. Or when the stores have lots, and you're like, can I take some extras for your other stores that don't have any? They usually give you some. So keep signed books. Second thing is...
So you're going into the stores and saying, hey, I'm Neil Pasricha. I've written these books. I'd be happy to sign them for you.
Before we even get to that, equip the bat belt, then I'm going to tell you the different ways to sign.
Okay.
Because we're going to get to that. That's going to be step 2 and 3.
Okay.
They told me I had 15 minutes. I'm going on a rant,
okay?
Let's go. Okay. Second thing you need is a signature.
Okay.
And it's not just, the night before this book came out, The Book of Awesome, I went to the bookstore near my house, downtown Toronto, biggest bookstore. And I said, do you have any signed books? He said, oh, that one signed, that one signed. It was just someone scribbled. Like, it was just like someone just wrote their scribbled name. I was like, that's not special. So I went out, I bought colored Sharpies. I got all kinds of different rainbows. It reflects the color of the book.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Right. I got colored then. I went and I got it's probably my backpack. I got a stamp made at Staples.
Okay.
It says, you are awesome.
Okay.
I got a stamp made. Now I got colored Sharpies and I got a stamp.
Yeah.
Where did I get that idea from? Frank Warren.
Okay.
Good friend of mine. He writes the books Post Secret, website postsecret.com. He has a stamp that says, free your secrets and become who you are.
Okay.
And he signs it in like a silver font.
Okay.
Okay. Chris Hadfield, the famous astronaut, he draws a picture of like a rocket ship with his name. Something special.
Okay.
You gotta have like, think of like the Joker. He leaves a little Joker card whenever he commits. What's your your key signature? What's your special move?
You got Joker, you got Batman belt.
Yes, I got a little Batman theme. But think of the finishing move in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah,
You got to have something that's uniquely you. Okay, so that was mine, was the colored Sharpies. Next, you also need book plates. Okay, what are book plates? Since like the 1800s, if you look inside a lot of books, they make stickers that say like, this book belongs to, and you put your name on it. Publishers still make these, and if they don't, you can get your own made, but publishers make them for me for free. I just say, can I have a box of book plates? So this one says The Happiness Equation, has my website on it, my name. Oftentimes you're signing a book that doesn't exist physically in between the person. The person's like, hey, I have your book at home. My sister has that book. Oh, do you want a book plate for it? Or often on the internet, someone emails me. I just bought 3 copies of your book for my team. And I say, oh, do you want us to mail you book plates? He said, yeah. In fact, I'll buy 10 more for the whole team, right? I had a guy that's vice president of sales at like a huge company. He's like, I got 2,000 people in my sales force. I was like, do you want to sign a book for them all? Sure. He buys 2,000 books. I mail him 2,000 of these. So you got to have that in your bat belt.
Like it.
And then you got to have some sort of, I keep some printed material that I can just give to people if they don't have a book and don't want a book, can't afford a book, have a library book. In this case, I have my podcast as a bookmark and as a sticker.
Okay.
So I printed these myself. At the end of the day, it costs very, very little.
Yep.
But it's calling out something I'm working on, something I can sign, I can give to somebody. People are embarrassed, unfortunately, when they say like, basically they don't have the money to buy a $30 book, and I don't blame them.
Yeah.
But then I still want to give them something, and you have something nice to give them.
Cool.
Okay. Now that the back belt's equipped, this is going to get to your other question.
Okay.
How do you sign books? Number 1, rule for life for any author, and a lot of people don't do this, but I'm talking about selling 1 million books here, is never drive past a bookstore again. Ever. If you see a bookstore, that's a stop sign. You stop, you get out, you walk in, you say, hi, my name's Neil. I wrote a book. I don't know if you carry it. It's called This, Book of Awesome. They look it up. Yeah, we have 4 copies in the back. Blow the dust off. There you go, sir. You sign them. Guess where they put them? They put the stickers on them. They put them at the front or at the cash. I told you the rate of sale goes up. Most importantly, someone gets something special. So I sign all stock. It's called stock when the book's just sitting on the shelves. In all stores that I ever go past in my whole life.
Okay.
I also have a rule, which is whenever I'm in a bookstore, I buy a book. I just want to buy a book. I'm a fan of books.
Of your own?
No.
Oh, something else.
Like what I'm saying is, if you're going through all these independent bookstores and you're walking into bookstores, support the store too. Like, when you go and sign books and you leave it there, you're saying, thanks for selling my book. One thing that's nice to do is, hopefully you like reading because you're an author, buy a book, support them, talk to them about what they're reading. Booksellers know more about books than anyone because they talk to people about books all day. They see what people are asking for that they don't have. Publishers don't do that. Authors don't do that. They're like, everyone's asking for a book about X. We don't have it. What's selling, what's not. Like, they tell you everything. And you can just have a conversation. Buy a book to support them, sign your books. Great. It's a great relationship. And you know what? They will tell the story of meeting you and talking to you for years because you maybe were interesting, you had a funny story, or you were a nice guy, right? Doesn't cost anything to be nice. So that's for second thing, sign books in all stores. And you can even take it a little further and go to warehouses.
Okay.
I have been to warehouses. So you ask big retailers, hey, Christmas is coming. You want me to sign the 1,000 books you have in the warehouse? I have literally gone to the Indigo warehouse and signed a skid of my books. I took packs of Sharpies, had people assisting me. We stickered them all. So now all books in the whole chain, as they get distributed, say signed by author right on them.
And that'll be for new orders that are coming out.
Yeah, but the warehouse always has tons of books in it.
Got it.
So it's like now in Whitehorse or the middle of Montana, there might be a signed book that I never could get to that bookstore, but it's signed. So sign all stock in all bookstores.
Why not just always do the ones in inventory?
Yeah, well, because it's not as easy to do that. First of all, where's the warehouse relative to where you are? I told you the chain that's based in Toronto. Second of all, how much inventory does the chain have? Like, are you making a personal bookseller connection there? No, because the booksellers are in bookstores.
Sure.
So there's all these reasons.
Okay.
The other thing that goes along with this is sometimes you'll be signing books with lineups. They're either author signing events. In my case, I do a lot of speaking events. So at the end of my speech, say I speak from 9 to 10 a.m. I'm speaking for 500 people, and they all got a copy of The Happiest Equation. Well, of those 500 people, 300 of them will wait in line to talk to me. 200 are like, thanks, but I want to go to the pool, right? What the natural human tendency is to do is to say, do this. But a few years ago, I got my book signed by David Sedaris, and it changed my life.
Okay.
David Sedaris sold many millions of books. He's a humorist. He's from Raleigh, North Carolina. He writes books of autobiographical, funny essays. I saw him speak at Massey Hall in Toronto. The show ended at I want to say 10 p.m. I went to the basement to get him to sign my book. I was still there at 1 a.m. My cell phone had died because it had run out of battery. I hated David Sedaris. I was mad at him. I couldn't believe he'd made me wait 3 hours. But when I got to the front of the line, he just looked up at me. He's like, hey. I'm like, hey, and there was a pause. I'm like, I'm a big fan of your work. I've been reading it for years. He's like, thank you. He waited again. When he waited over and over again, I had the opportunity to do everything I wanted to. I could lead the conversation. I could tell him the story. I could ask him a personal question. And it took 5 minutes. And I could tell, no one's going to end this except me. So I was like, well, I better get going. And I left. Do you know how many signed books I have on my bookshelf? Probably 50. I'm a big book fan, and I love signed books. Do you know how many book signings I really remember? One. That one with David Sedaris. What you're really trying to do when you sign a book is create a memory. So when I'm in line, or when I'm at the front of the line at a book signing event, or after a speech, it's your time. I will text your son in college. I will call your daughter in the hospital. I will take pictures with you and your friends. I will write a personal story. If somebody wants the book signed to their boyfriend or girlfriend, I say, what's your name? They say, Sarah. I say, Joe, Sarah and I think you're awesome. Conclude them in the story of it. Use the colors. What's your trademark? Include a bookmark. Now they don't just have a signed book, but they also have a memory. And that is life. Life is just a bunch of memories in a row. But you made a memory for them. And I don't remember all the people I've signed books for, but I know it's a big percentage of the million because of it adds up from all the stock, all the signings, and the more signings you do, the more you get to do. And how do you manage that lineup? Like a nightclub. You're a baller in the corner of a Miami nightclub getting bottle service. What do I mean? I mean, you need someone on pictures, literally someone helping you take, because every phone's different, You need someone tagging the book, so working the lineup with a yellow sticky, putting their name on the front so it can help you. Sometimes names are hard to spell. You want to kind of help there. Go slow if the line's really short. Really slow, don't let them leave.
Yeah.
And then if it's long, you can go a little faster. It's still their time. I still let them control it the way David Sedaris did for me. But, a publicist will run up and say, excuse me, if it goes too long. There is eventually a hard stop if someone's wait until the end to have a million questions or whatever. But I can't emphasize this enough. This is something that not many people do, and it makes a huge difference. You remember you have one signed book on your bookshelf. It's from me. How perfect, and we didn't plan that. You aren't going to throw it out because it's signed, so it's a bit special. It's not in the book cabinet over there, right? It's special. And now you've got a memory and a totem and a souvenir and a story all wrapped up around this book, and that is perfect for word of mouth. It's perfect for telling people about it. It's perfect for actually reading it. It's perfect for actually doing what the whole book is supposed to do, which is get out there. Sign, sign, sign. It helps everything in the whole selling a million book story.
This thing was going through my head. For people who, they don't have an audience as big, or they're worried that nobody's going to show up to their book signing.
That was part 2. We already said find your fans first.
So you have your fans already.
I mean, otherwise you're back there. You can't publish this book till you got your fans.
And
if you're a first-time debut novelist, out of the gate, there are people like that. I just, my personal experience, I can't speak to that. I only know the way to sell 1 million books through nonfiction, through having them, like that's my story, so I'm sharing that. But I think finding your fans is important at the beginning. But you're saying, okay, if you don't have them, then what?
Well, but I'm just trying to think now, how do you start getting more of these signed opportunities? So what you're saying is every time you're doing a speaking gig, you're also selling books and you're doing a signing at the end, right?
I'll tell you how to do it.
Okay.
You go into all the bookstores near your house and you say simply this: may I do a book signing here? And they will say yes, because bookstores like having authors in there doing bookstores. Right. They might say no if it's like the week before Christmas and you want to be there Saturday morning or something.
Right.
But just being kind to them and respectful to them, they'll say yes. Now, it's a humbling moment, because you're walking into a bookstore, either with your own book, if it's self-published, or off the shelf if it's not. They have to usually order up. So if they keep 2 books of your store in stock, maybe they're ordering 50 for this big moment, your Saturday morning in November. And I say it's humbling, because you're sitting at a stand, you got your book on display, no one knows who you are, no one knows your book, you got 3 hours. Just make the 12 people you talk to important. Be honest, be a genuine, interesting person or interested in them, and maybe you sell 5, 10 books. They only carried 2 of your books before. So I just told you sold more than double their inventory in one spurt.
Right.
You made a connection with the booksellers, so when you ask them again, they'll say yes or no, right? But they have a connection there. They've referred to your book. You've signed your stock there. Now the stock is their sign, which increases the rate of sale. You have 5 or 10 people that now could read it and could do a review or could tell other people about it. That's not worthless. That's still worth something. And I just gave you arguably the worst case scenario, right? I know people that do this and they go like to a different bookstore every Saturday morning, right? Yeah, so you can do that too. It's grinding, it's hustling, it's work, it's time, but this is called How to Sell a Million Books. So of course I'm telling you all these things.
As you're talking, the thing that's going through my head too with that is content. That's content. Like film it. That becomes a YouTube video.
Of course.
That becomes a vlog. That becomes an Instagram. So it doesn't only have to be wasted time in that. Yes, you invested in relationships. Yes, you sold 14 books or 2 or whatever you signed. But that could also be potentially content.
Sure. Plus, it's not just content to put on your own channels. It's also you're living life in an interesting way, and that creates stories and thoughts and ideas. And someone will say, "What's this about? Is it about that?" And you're like, "Oh, what a weird thing." You get reactions and feedback in real time on your own work, and that's so healthy. You know?
I often feel bad. So I've seen a lot of authors in stores who nobody's talking to them. They're sitting at their table, super humbling. Nobody's talking to them, and so I'll just, because they're an entrepreneur. I love entrepreneurs, so I'll just tell me, what's this book about?
Do you buy the book?
Sometimes.
See, and you know what? People might be watching this thinking like, oh, well, this guy's easy for him to say. He sold $1 million. Dude, I've been sitting at the front of Walmarts, and literally everyone's like, where's the pet food? They don't even, like, it's like a disaster. Like, I have done.
We need to vlog. That is content. That is content.
I have had, like, no one at line. I mean, I'm like, what am I doing? But don't forget, you're also making a relationship with the retailer. You're making a relationship with the bookseller. There's all kinds of benefits there.
Yeah.
So, yes, signing books is key. And doing so increases the rate of sale, increases the connectivity, and creates memories for people.
Never stop. What do you got, man?
Okay, well, we've done 2 parts already on the book launch. Remember, sowing the seeds, hustling for the launch, where you got to grind for 3 to 6 months, pitching like crazy, getting your talking points straight. That, and I said at the beginning of that part, I was like, the number 1 indicator to a book success is how well it does at the launch. Right? So that was really important. Number 2, how well it keeps going. Right? A book can have a great launch and drop off, or a book could be a slow burner out of the gate, and if it keeps slow burning, it might keep slow burning, and that's good too. My editor of my first book used to say, I'd rather have a consistent seller over a bestseller.
Okay.
Because I would say, oh, I really want to make the New York Times bestsellers. And she's like, Neil, most of those books are like, boop, boop. They're like, pop on, pop off. I'd rather have a consistent seller than a bestseller.
Got it.
We talked about Who Moved My Cheese. Did you ever see that in the bestseller list? It's selling way more copies than almost anyone's book. But it's just below the radar, right? Ryan Holiday would call this a perennial seller.
Yep.
Okay, right? So there's a lot of books like that. So how? How do you do that? Never, never stop. It is a marathon, not a sprint. Here's some things I do. Number one, I put my personal email address in all my books. And in some cases, my address, like PO box, right? But I have a connective tissue right away for people to reach me. Of course, you can do this through socials or use a hashtag, but have a way for people that want to, when they get to the end of your book, reach me.
Okay.
Go ahead. I got an email this morning from a woman like at university saying that this book has changed her life. She wrote me a huge essay and all this stuff. Someone handed it to me. She wouldn't have done that if I didn't have my email. She just wouldn't know how to get in touch with me. Right? So that's a great way to connect. Also, when you have your email address public, guess who else contacts you? I'm not kidding. Book clubs in Alaska that want you to Skype in. High school newspapers in the Middle East that are doing a profile on you. Like a YouTube channel like mine with hardly any subscribers, like you'll get requests up the wazoo. Every single one you say no to is another person who's passionate enough to love your work enough to contact you. So don't say no to any of them. I still do high school newspaper interviews. I do Skype book clubs at least once a week. So I have my assistant schedule me for up to 2 per week, okay? And the only rule she puts in is that it's got to be at least 8 people, and they have to have read one of my books. That's it. But those people tell other people, and they tell other people, and they tell other people. And I'm not going to Alaska. I'm literally on Skype. So it's not like I have to travel. And it's nothing better than sitting in a room, like a living room full of grandmas, and they're like, well, here's what chapter I liked, and here's what I learned, and here's why I got this question for you. I've done them with startups in San Francisco. I literally say at the bottom of my email list, if you want to Skype in, like contact this person, and here's the email address, and we're good. Never, never stop. Never, never stop means never dropping by a bookstore, always stopping and signing. Never, never stop means waiting until the last person in every lineup. I've missed flights before so that the last person can get their book signed. Never, never stop means putting your email address public. Never, never stop means saying yes to every request you get. Doing everything you possibly can to keep sharing the story. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Never stop.
And how do you split that up now? Being you've got all these books. I mean, you're now going to be in promotion mode for this one, but you sold 1 million of these 2. How do you?
Well,
helping this helps promote these ones too. I guess,
I was
right?
just about to say you answered the question right in the thing. One way to never, never stop is to serialize.
Okay.
One way to never, never stop, and you can ask Jack Canfield on Chicken Soup for the Soul about this. It's if you got something that's working, do another one. Because the sequel sells the original, and the original sells the sequel, right? So there's a reason why Harry Potter has sold, I think, 350 million copies. Crazy. You should really be doing this interview with J.K. Rowling. Sorry that I'm the backup here. But J.K., Joe as I call her, she'd probably tell you, I would bet money on this, that the first Harry Potter is outsold all the rest. And the reason is because when you come out with Harry Potter 2, people are like, oh, how do I enter the series? I start with Harry Potter 1.
Right.
Similarly, the Book of Awesome goes up every subsequent book I do. And that's another way to never, never stop, is instead of focusing on the promotional and publicity and sales side of it when the book comes out, which is important, we're not going to gloss over that and say that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Spend the time after your hustle, 3 to 6 months, writing the next book. Because then when that comes out and has its own PR and has its own press and has its own TV shows, people go back to the original. And there's no surprise that when You Are Awesome comes out, I'm sure the Book of Awesome will be back on the front tables again.
Right.
Because retailers aren't stupid, publishers aren't stupid. They're like, they'll probably want both.
Especially when the connection is so obvious.
And you got to make it obvious.
Yeah.
To that point earlier, we said about a title.
Right.
Earlier part of the series, the title has to be ownable.
Yeah.
So once you have your, like Jen Sincero, who wrote You Are a Badass, there's no surprise why her next book's called You Are a Badass at Making Money. You are about, like,
right.
Something that she, and if she doesn't own a word, she can jump. Okay? And some people can do it on their name. I don't think I can. My last name is super hard to pronounce. Neil Pasricha. People can't say it. They can't spell it. Brené Brown. There's a good name. BB. Sounds good. It's fun to say. Brown. Everyone knows how to say it and spell it. So maybe on her books, Daring Greatly, Dare to Lead, maybe her name is the ownable part.
Well, it's interesting because I was looking at a bunch of naming stories, and one I came across with, I think it was Xerox, which seems like Xerox,
yeah,
so with an X and with an X.
Yeah.
But he purposely picked a name that was so difficult, but once people got it, they never forgot it.
Yeah.
So once they get Pasricha,
and there's a copy of the X at the end.
Yeah. Once you get Pasricha, you don't forget it. You got
and
it.
There's at least there's only one. Like when you type in Neil Pasricha, like I got my own. I can
type in Brown.
Yeah, that's tough.
So many Browns.
Yeah, the grass is always greener. I'd rather have Carmichael. You'd rather have Pasricha. It could be ownable anything, but the point is I was trying to make as part of never stopping is never stopping to write.
Right. So what's the time difference between these two? Or these three, I guess. That's a kid's book. I mean, I guess still related.
So 2010, the first book.
Yeah.
What I don't have here, although I have them back here if you want me to pull them out, is the Book of Even More Awesome 2011, the Book of Holiday Awesome 2011.
Okay. 2 books in 1 year.
Yeah. Don't forget I've also got, then what else comes out is you want it ownable? The Journal of Awesome.
The Journal of
pops
Awesome.
out with the same logo. I got 5 calendars of awesome. Those page-a-day calendars.
Okay,
2012, 2013, that's right. Then the Happiest Equation comes out in this comes out in 2015, 2016.
Okay.
This is 2019. Okay. There's an Audible original in there in the middle. So it's 10 years now, and I'm on 7 books. Right. And I'm 39 years old at the time of this filming. If I'm lucky, I'll keep going.
Right.
The only goal I have in my life, as I'm trying to do it, is make the book good enough that I can do another one. Right? I think the average person writes something like 1.1 books, meaning that 9 out of 10 people stop at 1.
Yeah.
Only 1 out of 10 will write another one, and then again, it's probably less and less and less, right? So I love writing. I really enjoy it. I find it really fun and therapeutic to try to constantly clarify and simplify my own thoughts to myself. This book is something I read when I'm feeling stressed.
Right.
That's why I wrote it, because I was feeling stressed. So still when I'm feeling stressed, I'll read it. So I'm writing to myself. All writing ultimately is quite selfish. You're trying to do something to clarify your own thoughts or to simplify something or to make something clear to you. So all I want is permission to do another one.
And are you writing every day, or are you breaking from writing to do... Well, I guess you said in the previous video you wrote that in the 3-month sprint.
Yeah.
One of these in a 3-month sprint.
Yeah.
So you're in promotion mode for this. This is just ramping up. You got 4 months for this to come out.
Yes.
Then you're going to be in full-time mode promoting it for at least 3 months of just all day, every day.
I mean, and part of that is also just doing every request that comes in, every radio station that comes in, every high school newspaper, just saying yes to everything.
And then when do you start writing the next book?
So the next book is already being written.
While you're doing the promotion. Okay.
No. So I've already started it now. I'm in the process of writing it now. It's all about trust. Okay, that's what my theme is focused on. So the way I'm doing it is I wrote a new speech about trust. I did it at South by Southwest. I stress tested the ideas that way. I've been doing a year of research where it's sitting in the back of my mind. I've hired a research assistant to help me dig up some studies. Then I've written drafts of chapters. So it's sitting in the background there. And then, the goal should be, partly of never stopping, is try to sell the next book before this book comes out. And the reason you want to do that is...
Sell to publishers? Sell to lit agents?
Yeah,
Got it, okay.
Yeah, because you want to know where you're going, for lack of better words. You want to know what's next for you, and you want to also have some more buy-in and some more proof. The way I think of it is, usually you have 2 books left. So if my next book bombs, and then I have a bomb again, I might be done. I might be kicked out of the pool. 2 bombs in a row, who's going to want me after that? But if you keep having a hit, then you sell the next one in before the... See what I mean? You want to try to get the next one ready, so that you can then have that cooking while you then work on... you got to almost be a book ahead.
So before you're saying you wrote that book in 3 months and you spent a year editing it because it's back and forth. But is it during editing time that you're then working on the next one?
But I wish I could say there's one clear answer, but don't forget the Book of Awesome was literally a daily blog.
Right.
So this one was written every single day for 4 years. That turned into 3 books. Yes, I wrote that. This one took 9 months. My wife told me she was pregnant. I wrote it while she was pregnant till we had the baby, and then she had the baby. I shouldn't say that. She had the baby, not me. And then otherwise you get slapped. You didn't have the baby. Well, you didn't even carry the thing. So that book then I had written over the 9 months. This one I wrote in a 3-month sprint, partly because I've been so much busier now that in order to write now, I'm like, cut away speeches, cut away promotion, cut away media. Don't do anything, like don't do any meetings. Just take 3 months to write it. So it's more intentional to write today than it was when I started, where I was just doing like an essay a day.
Right.
So that's just my life right now. I might tell you next time we do a video that I've got a new system, but my current system is carve out time if you're going to get it done. Otherwise, it won't get done.
So in the editing of this, is that when you're then writing the next one on trust?
Stephen King would say, it takes 3 months to write a book. So you write a book for 3 months. Mm-hmm. Remember, though, this I said earlier, is that you hand it into the publisher.
Right.
Now, what are you doing? You're twiddling your thumbs.
You wait for a month to come back.
You're writing the next one. Then when that one comes back, you haven't looked at it in so long that it seems fresh to you, and you've got all the edits. You've maybe written the next one or half the next one. It comes back. So you have to have a couple on the go in order to keep rotating. And all the editing process is, though, by the way, is this really slow hot potato back and forth. So there's tons of time there to write if you're like, well, I handed this one in, so now I can write that one. So
it's hustle while you wait.
Hey, that's a good phrase. Yeah.
That's not mine.
I like that.
I wanted to say Mark Twain, but I don't know.
Mark Twain. Mark Twain never said hustle, did he?
I think you should look
Abraham Lincoln. I think it was from the Bible, that one. No, I'm just kidding.
No, look at I didn't make it up.
I think you own it. That's ownable.
That's ownable.
I don't know a book that's called Hustle While You Wait.
Hustle while you wait. But that's basically what you're saying. Like you're waiting, so I'm not just going to twiddle my thumbs. I'm going to hustle on the next one.
Yeah. I should also maybe at this point in this series mention that I don't watch television. The thing that's missing so far from the conversation is like Neil doesn't not do free time very well.
Okay.
So it's like family, work, and that's, it's like I don't kind of like chill on the couch and stare at the ceiling much.
Well, it's intentional.
Because I'm spending my time doing stuff I purposely want to do. But when people say, hey, did you see the news? I'm like, no. They're like, did you read the newspaper? No. Did you check out the latest magazine issue about this? Nope. Did you check out this new thing on Netflix? I'm like, no. So part of what I want the viewer to be aware of throughout this entire conversation that we're having is I'm making trade-offs, like we all are. Mm-hmm. Life is about trade-offs. So if you want to sell 1 million books, there's got to be trade-offs. And one of them is I don't really know what's on Netflix and what's in the news. Lots more, but those are just a couple that come to mind.
So the life cycle of making a book and promoting it is about 3 years?
Hilariously, yes.
From thinking about the idea and writing it and then
submitting it, getting it purchased.
But what's
a year of editing, and then there's a year of titling, cover, distribution, sales,
promotion.
Yeah, it's really I think it's like 2 to 3 years.
But then on top of it,
some people take 10 years. So you might take 7 years to write it.
Sure, right. Especially the first one.
Yeah.
But if it's 3 years, it's not 3 years, and then next 3 years they're stacked.
Yes.
So like 1 year, and then so you're working on like 3 books at the same time almost.
Everybody can do it differently. The other thing that we're missing from this conversation is how many books did you sell to a publisher? So this was a single book deal.
Yeah.
This was a double book deal. So I've sold 2 books to my publisher now, so the next one's already purchased.
The trust one.
Yeah, the trust one, right? So before that one comes out, which maybe that's in 2020 or 2021, before that comes out, my goal would be to Genesis, think on, write my next thing,
right, and
then sell that in. So I've got the next thing cooking too. Yeah, Gretchen Rubin, author of The Happiness Project, told me that. She's like, I always sell in the book after the one I'm working on so that I have my next project kind of starting to go.
And that's great for repeat authors, right? But your first one, you're not going to sell a 3-part deal.
Of course.
Right?
Actually, some first-time authors, you have a big blog audience, you have a big email list, you have a big platform, you have a proven concept. Somehow you've proved the concept. They might get a double book deal out of the gate, or a triple book deal, or five book deal, but they might not even want that.
Okay.
You might on the 3rd or 4th book be like, I wish I was not in this thing. I wish I was doing something else. So it all depends. Some people play the game for a big advance. Some people play small advance. Let's try to sell the books and then get permission to do another one.
What's your thought on advance, no advance?
Well, I should probably take a small break to tell people how advances work.
Okay.
So advances are against royalties. So say you get a $50,000 advance, and say you get $1 per book sold. okay, which is average is about $1 per paperback, $3 a hardcover. That's a relatively average industry amount. So say you're doing a paperback book, you get $1 per book. You have to then sell 50,000 copies of that book to get up to your advance before every incremental sale counts for your royalties. Meaning, it's not like getting a big advance is necessarily just good in and of itself. It's now a much higher bar you have to cross in your sales to then exceed in order to both earn out, it's called, you earn out your royalties, but also more importantly, make the publisher money, make you money, and give yourself permission to do another one, right? So getting a huge first-time advance might sound good on paper, but I would be very skeptical and scared of that personally, because I'd be like, well, what if this thing doesn't do it? Then I might not get another chance. And for me, I like the chances. I want to keep writing. I want to keep doing this. That's why I'm making this video. I like talking about books. I live in bookstores. I'm in bookstores almost every day. I literally know booksellers in every bookstore and anywhere walk. I have 3 bookstores open until midnight, walking distance from my house. Every night they're open till midnight. So I literally can go by. I know people that work till 11. I'm there all the time. I love books. So all I want is permission to keep going. Therefore, I don't care about the advances. I want permission to keep going. I want to keep doing this. And then if the books keep selling, of course you earn out your advances, same money back to you. So then of course you get permission to keep going because everyone wants more books from you.
This is our last episode, number 10, which is Get Lucky.
Get lucky.
How do we get lucky?
Well, Evan, when you first asked me to do this, I think I said to you, I don't know how to talk about this because I just got lucky. That's always been my response. And I wouldn't have done this video other than the fact that I thought about it more and more, and I thought, I'm just afraid to do this video because I actually have been working hard at this. I think hopefully the previous 9 parts of this series show that. There's some elements of hard work in there, but I do have some of the original semblance of that first blush thought, which is partly I just got lucky. Now, what do I mean get lucky? There's 3 things I want to say here. First is hope for a moment, okay? We talked about talking points. We talked about fitting your book into what the conversation is. We talked about that in earlier parts of the series, but there's something magical about a moment where you might have the right book at the right place at the right time that you couldn't have guessed, and it just all worked out. So if there's a huge celebrity that dies or something, and you happen to, this happens all the time, you look at it, you happen to have a book coming out that person's autobiography or that person's biography in 2 weeks, boom, boom, you got the Steve Jobs, literally the Steve Jobs autobiography came out right when he died. You couldn't have predicted, he might have lived 10 more years. The point is, it randomly happened, right? You could also be a huge news story about a police shooting a black teenager. The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas was dropping at that time. So boom, it's a moment happens in the news and there's a book about it at the same time. This is random. It's literally, you can't control that. You could also hope for a golden touch. This happens. I have a friend, Humble the Poet. He has a book that just came out called Unlearn. Okay. And he told me Charlemagne, the god, he saw the book at some conference or something like that. He tweeted about it or whatever. He reached out to him, has him on his show, has him on the Breakfast Club. So you can't predict that kind of stuff. With this book, in Canada, there's an incredible woman named Heather Reisman. She runs the largest book chain in Canada called Indigo. Mm-hmm. She liked it. She made it a Heather's pick. She puts it on the front table. She says, I really like this book. That's like Oprah. That's a golden touch. You could similarly have Evan Carmichael put you on his YouTube channel or something and say, hey guys, I don't read many books, but this book I really love.
This is it.
My point is authentic, organic, random. Oprah picks you for her book club. Reese Witherspoon picks you for her book club. Someone who you have no idea how they got it. I mean, I have some, just last week, somebody with hundreds of thousands of followers on whatever, Instagram, reached out to me saying, loved your book, friend gave it to me, I want to feature it, can you send me a couple copies? Sure. That's random. Yeah. That's luck. You can't control that stuff. And below these 2 things, the random moment, the random touch, what I want people to take away from this series more than anything else is if you wrote the book you wanted to, if on your deathbed you can look back at it and be like, I'm proud of it, if you tried some of the things I'm talking about, plus some more that I don't talk about because I don't even know them, but you just care enough about your work and your art and your book that you want to give. You want to give it to the world and you want to share it, and you did your best. Then at the end of all that, Evan, no matter what, no matter how many books you sell, honestly, all you really, 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 really need is just to find peace with that, to find comfort with that, knowing that I did the best book I could, I wrote exactly what I wanted to do, it looks exactly the way I wanted to do it, and I tried really hard to spread it. Maybe you sell 5,000 copies, maybe you sell 10 million copies. Just knowing that you did it your best, we can all live with that. Partly what's driven me over the previous 9 parts of this series is that I couldn't go to sleep thinking I didn't try. I wanted to try, so I tried, right? But if you tried and you did your best, then you should be good with that. That is all we're really playing for, and that's why number 10 is get lucky. Because certainly in my own story, and I'm sure with anyone that sold over 1 million books, there's a tremendous amount of luck. I remember hearing an interview with Jack Canfield, the guy that did Chicken Soup for the Soul. He's like, one day on the cover of USA Today, one of the jurors in the O.J. Simpson trial was photographed holding Chicken Soup for the Soul on the cover of the national newspaper at the biggest trial of the century. I mean, you could argue, like, was that luck or was that just I think that's pretty lucky. You can't randomly make that happen, right? So, like, there's all these random things in the world that happen. You could also get unlucky. You could have the best book ever, and right before you're about to release it, the president tweets something terrible, and all the airwaves are taken up the next day, and you get bumped from the Today Show. That happens. I've known that happen to people. That's even happened to me. I got bumped from the Today Show once because it was the morning after Osama bin Laden was assassinated. I got bumped. Thankfully, for my sake, I guess, they had me back on the show like months later. But I flew home that day. I was like, oh my God, like, I just missed my chance because we killed Osama bin Laden. Like, it's something totally out of my control. So much of this stuff is out of your control. I've given you 9 things that are in your control that I think you could do. At the end of all that, just be happy that you did it.
Oh, and I mean, I love it. But how do you, there's a lot of people I think who would say, man, I'm just so unlucky. But then they don't do all the 1 to 9.
Yeah.
And they just blame it on bad circumstances.
Well, I'm a bit wary about the fact that the 1 to 9 is like, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
There's a lot. We went through so much stuff, right? So try your best. Do everything I shared with you that I could think of, right? This is all my stuff that I could think of. I'm sure I'm missing lots. Never stop, and then be happy with what you got.
So
I didn't put be lucky at the beginning. I put it at the end, on purpose.
Is the acid test just, are you proud of yourself?
Yeah. Can you sleep at night? Did you do your best? Some authors, by the way, I've met authors who are so interested in the sales side of it, but not in the writing. I've met authors that are so interested in the writing side, but not interested in the selling. So you do need both.
Right.
You do need both. You have to be so passionate about the art and the craft and the right word and getting that sentence perfect and editing it 10 times and loving that. You have to be into that. And I think these days you gotta be interested in the hustle. You gotta be interested in staying till the end of the line to sign everyone's book, stopping at every bookstore. You gotta be interested in saying, what type of traffic is coming to my website from radio stations? Oh, why don't I just email all those radio stations? I literally did that for the Book of Awesome. It's like, oh, I'm getting traffic. I can see like 4 hits from like Q107 in Calgary. I'm like, hey, did you guys want me to come on? They're like, we love your book. We were talking about it. So that's partly hustling, but it's also just, I'm just looking at, I'm taking opportunities that are right there. So you gotta have both. You gotta have a writing passion and you gotta have the passion to kind of get it shipped.
Right. But are you proud of your effort every night?
Yes, you have to be. I mean, maybe because I'm East Indian and my parents were like driven. I was supposed to be a doctor and I failed. That's why I care about it. I don't know. But like, yeah, you've got to like be able to, you got to think, did I do my best?
Was there resistance for you from your parents of like, you're going to be an author? What?
Oh my God. I didn't even tell you this yet. I had all these books, I had a full-time job. I was working at Walmart for 10 years. For 5 books and 200 keynote speeches and TED Talks. And only then did I have the courage to say, you know what? I think I'm going to do this full time. So even after selling 1 million books, I'm still working my full-time job because I felt culturally that you gotta have a paycheck. Who's gonna pay your dental bills? If you're an author, I pay them now. And by the way, the dentist is very expensive.
It's true.
Like $400. Those used to be on my benefits plan. But you don't have a benefits plan anymore.
So what is there a book number, or for authors who are watching, wanting to get started, want this to be their career, they're working Walmart, they maybe are okay with their job, but I don't know, people love their job working at Walmart. At what point does it become a business?
Well, so for me, I always did the 3-bucket test. So a week has 168 hours in it. So split that up into 3. You got 56, 56, 56. If you sleep 8 hours a night, like you're supposed to sleep 8 hours a night, that's 56 hours. 8 hours a night, 7 days a week, 56 hours. A normal full-time job is about 56 hours. Maybe it's contracted for 40, but you have commuting time, you're maybe staying late, you might be doing work at home, like I was, so 56. Those 2 buckets, pay for, justify, and create, your 3rd bucket. That is your side hustle bucket, it's your fun bucket, it's your anything you want bucket. You can binge watch Netflix, you can go to the gym, or you can write a book. In my case, for all those years I was at Walmart and doing my books, it was always in that bucket. Only when Leslie and I got married, and we had kids, and that 3rd bucket quickly became bedtime, bath time, dinner, then I was like, uh-oh, my work bucket, which is 56 hours at Walmart, it has to be 1 or 2. It has to be Walmart or writing. And so then I made the decision. Which would I be prouder with on my deathbed? And if it fails, what could I go back to and what can I go back to? 2 tests, deathbed test and the Plan B test. The writing passed both tests at that time. I'd be prouder of it. And if it failed, I could hopefully knock on doors and get a job again. So then I did it. So it still took me a lot of years. And looking back, I probably should have leapt earlier. But for me, keeping those things going at the same time was healthy for 2 reasons. Number one, it created risk-taking in the other. So having a full-time job at Walmart meant my blog didn't need to have ads. I could write about whatever I wanted. I wasn't counting on it. And the blog and the books being successful means I could speak truth to power at work. I could ask the CEO a question. And when that happens in corporate offices, you get promoted. So risk-taking was created in the other by having something to fall back on in both.
If someone wanted to follow your path and be a nonfiction writer, turn to thought leader, do speaking gigs, get paid for writing books, get paid for speaking, consulting, coaching, all the stuff that you do. At what point, whether it's timeline or number of books sold, can it become a feasible career?
Oh, well, that depends on your cost of living, and it depends on the type of lifestyle you want. So if you live in an urban center and you want to buy a home and you want to have children, like that's a different thing than like someone who's single living in a cheap apartment in the middle of nowhere,
right?
Who's like maybe making small amounts of money on ad revenue. And
so let's say I want to make $100,000 a year.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I can tell you all the numbers, how they work. So basically, the average hardcover makes $3, and the average paperback makes $1. Okay. So for me today, zoom up to today. That's just a way to. So books are largely a small industry. So most people that are writers can't make enough to quit their jobs. Start with that. Most people who are writers cannot make enough money to quit their jobs. Because also a writer's like, the salary's like this. Like it's, whoop, like unless you have another book, right? So then you think, well, how do I monetize that more if I want to? And for most thought leaders, they do a number of different things. Speaking, you mentioned, is one very common thing. So I think the value of live is increasing in the world. I think content is free and it's everywhere and everyone can watch anyone's TED Talks. You can watch my South by Southwest talk, my Google talk, and my TED Talk for free. So why would you have me at your conference? Because the value of live is increasing. That also plays into that thing about book signing I said. Staying late, going early, shaking every hand, that's worth a lot of money because no one else does it, right? So that's one thing. But also the value of live is increasing because it's harder and harder to get a uniform group of people going in one direction. Right? Because everyone's so scattered, so that's valuable. So speaking's one. Another thing is, and I've never done this, monetizing your properties. Branding deals, influencer marketing, ads on your website, like that's huge. A lot of people that are thought leaders that have email lists have ads in their email list or sponsors in their email list. I do not. I've chosen not to do that. I'm against ads. I have a podcast. My podcast is called 3 Books. I'm looking for the 1,000 most formative books in the world. It's a great way to keep the conversation going about my books. But also, I've chosen no ads, no sponsors, no promotions, no interruptions, none of that. Because I don't like them. That's actually the only reason I don't have ads, because I'm selling books, so I don't need it. And I'm giving speeches, so I don't need it and I don't want it, and that's a choice I make. But some people might say, well, I don't want to do the hustle and I don't want to do the speaking and I don't want to do traveling, but I'm going to monetize my podcast. And for them, I say, congrats. Like, I have no judgment. It's just a totally different model. I'm just anti-advertising because I feel dirty about ads. That's just random for me.
All right. I love it.
Yeah. That's just my thing. I don't have ads on my blogs, on my podcasts, on nothing. I got no ads. But in exchange, I'm also doing other things that other people wouldn't do probably. So you got to do what's right for you, in line with your integrity, in line with your principles, that makes you feel happy at the end of the day and live an awesome life.
I love it, man. Dude, thank you so much for all the energy and attention and value in this 10-part series. For people who want to find you, dive deeper into your world, maybe buy the book, like what do you want, people watching, what do you want as a next step for them to take? Even though you don't like ads, let people want to dive deeper into your world.
Okay, my world all centers on one website, which is just neil.blog, Neil.blog. Neil.blog, that's it. It's got links to all the stuff I do.
I love it, man. Thank you for coming on, dude.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
To learn how to build $1 million coaching business, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
Whoa, our life advisor, you're taking somebody's life in your hands. And so I think it's very, very important to become educated in what it means to coach somebody in their life.